You ready?
Yep.
All right. Give you a cheers. You'll start it.
Cheers.
There you go. Thank you for doing this again.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
What happened to the last one not work out?
The first one we did?
Yeah.
The first one we did does not. It's only audio on there.
Oh.
So it just is like a black screen.
Oh, I
and
see.
you can hear the audio. The audio is not great either though.
Okay.
So it's not the best. So I figured we'll do it one more time.
I'll try to be as charismatic this time.
Yeah. So I think the best place to start is a little bit further than before you were born.
Okay.
But the story that I've told multiple people is a story of your great grandmother coming across. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. I had several relatives that came across in the wagon trains, migrating to the West Coast, Oregon specifically. But my great grandmother, Nani Springer, their family came across, stopped in the Midwest somewhere for a while, had a prairie home, one of those that's half in the earth and half not. Their goats on top of their roof, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she used to, for fun, ride her horse out into the tons of just, natural pasture land, whatever you call that.
Yeah.
And she would take her pistol and shoot rattlesnakes, she said. But eventually they ended up out in Oregon. I don't remember or know the whole path how they got there, but then other stories we have of her and Papa, Roy Springer. Mm-hmm.
And then she ended up in the retirement home.
What?
Sitting at the...
That's a different relative.
Oh, okay.
Older.
Because,
when Nani was, I don't know the exact ages, but I bet maybe she was in mid to late 60s or early 70s. Mm-hmm. This great Aunt Irene was in her 90s, and I was 4 or 5 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's when we were in the big city for me, growing up in a tiny little town on the coast, kind of isolated, logging, fishing, that's it. Going to Portland, even then, had skyscrapers and big airport and stuff. So for me, that was just that in itself was amazing. But then she lived in a condo on up there, I don't know, 20th floor maybe. And that's when I had my first real surreal moment of life. It's the only reason I remember it. It's been one of the few things I remember from that age. But I'm, 4 or 5, and she's like 94 or 95.
Yeah.
But, she was telling me stories about how when they got here, they were settling originally in the Umpqua River Valley. She said several times their cabin was burnt down by Indians. And, but in the middle of that story as a kid, I looked up and saw a jet plane coming across the skyline heading into the airport. And that young age, I got it. I was like, this woman rode a wagon train with horses. There weren't even cars. Mm-hmm. And I just saw a jet go by. That was just amazing.
It is I think I wanted that documented well.
Yeah.
So that it's not I'm not just fabricating it.
That's pretty crazy when you think
I think it is one of the most stunning.
It's a comment on how rapidly the U.S., our civilization, worldwide, our civilization is advanced. Yeah. So rapidly.
I mean, that's like probably 60, 50 year time frame from when she was an adult she got to live to 90.
I'd have to think about that. Okay, so let's say 65, she was 90. Say that.
So late 1800s, so like 1890, she would have been probably...
Yeah, she's probably born 18...
Well, we can figure it out.
Say she's 100, it's almost 1860.
That'd be 1865 or 1865, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to think how fast it came.
Yeah.
Was that time frame? Yeah, that's...
Pretty wild.
I think it is one of the most it's a monumental story to just kind of grasp the idea.
And she may have been more like 97. Our family, I don't remember. I don't remember how old she was exactly, but she was old.
Yeah.
And our family has a pretty long lifespan, well into the 90s. Many people.
Yeah.
So I imagine she might have been, because she was close to being near to the end of her life, which is why she was in that condo.
Yeah.
But yeah,
think it is. I think it's a good story. Good
Yeah,
story to
it's
start
pretty
with.
amazing. It is. Yeah.
The other story before we get to you, the ghost story
From Nani.
from Nani. Yeah, I think that's an interesting story as
Nani
well.
was so much fun because we lived in the times where there weren't computers, there weren't video games, there's 3 channels on TV. So really a lot of the entertainment, especially when families got together, was just simply talking.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody loved Nani because she had such a cute little smile and a cute little laugh, and she's just a cute little thing, and she's a bundle of energy, and she had so many stories, just a bunch of them. But one of the more vivid ones that was kind of fun, and I'm pretty she told it like it was true.
Yeah.
But they were living in Portland, and I think it was before they had any kids themselves. And Papa would go off to work, and she would stay at home and take care of the house and do other little things. She might have some little odd jobs on the side, but her routine was to sit in the morning after she'd done some chores, say 10 or something,
Mm-hmm.
and sip her coffee and read the newspaper.
Yeah.
And she looked up one time and startled, and there was a man standing there, and it scared her, it freaked her out a bit, but then,
Certainly.
she didn't know what to do, and he didn't really do anything except sit there like this. And so, she and then he disappeared, whatever, shook it off. It kept recurring, and she kept noticing, got less and less anxious and scared about it, and got more observant, and she started noticing that he's actually pointing. And she's wondering, well, what are you pointing at? And then she's wondering, well, did he pass away somewhere outside, and something from the sky fell or hit him or point? Who knows? Well, anyway, never could really figure it out. But she got used to him. It was almost like her little friend, her mid-morning friend.
Yep.
They later moved, and this is years later. And then she was reading the newspaper again, and she came across this article about this couple that had bought a small home and was renovating it. And they opened up one wall, and in the beam, they found a bunch of money. And then they started investigating this whole thing. Long story short, there was a robbery. They got away. They got trapped in that house and were shot and killed in that house.
Mm-hmm.
It was Nani's house.
Yeah.
Now it's being renovated.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was the money.
That was where he was.
And where he was pointing was that beam. It's like he was trying to tell her.
It's right there.
Money there.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. But she had other cool stories. Ouija board stories and just all kinds of interesting things.
I think I'd be curious, when the bank robber or the robbers died, I wonder if it correlated time frame wise to when he appeared, and that just happened to be.
I don't remember those details.
It just seems, yeah. So, but it'd be interesting to
could be.
That would be an interesting coincidence.
Yeah. Well, back then, again, technology and everything was so
not quite the same.
Yeah.
Well, now let's get into, I guess, your story. Let's start go from childhood, I guess. It's very interesting upbringing in Oregon, being kind of out in the middle of nowhere, having a
blue collar town, logging, fishing.
Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting parenting, and we'll say different. It's not just different time of more on your own, having a go to.
Well, I think I know where you're getting at. Well, I'll go a little off script.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll just start with a theme for my life, I think, and for a lot of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said this to you. I've said that great achievement in life usually is paired with great dysfunction. There's something that drives you.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, for many people, maybe most, it's something not good driving you.
Yeah.
And bringing that to my parents were actually good parents. They cared. They tried to be good parents. They read. They did all those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a handful. I was really energetic. I was a bit ADD. I tended to get in trouble pretty easily, pretty rapidly. And, I was getting to be a handful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got to the point where they felt like they couldn't get through to me. And they said, well, what are others going to think? And they noticed that got my attention. Well, the reason it got my attention is looking back upon it all, is that was a really weak spot in me. They didn't know that. They didn't mean to inflict dysfunction. But I carried that through for a long time because it worked, so they kept using it. And they didn't realize that they were kind of driving this little, seed in me, bad seed in me, where I started constantly then trying to measure up, and at the same time feel I didn't measure up. And I think that's probably what got me so motivated to push myself in a lot of different things.
Yeah, because it's not coming from it's not coming from like it's a self-driven thing. It's not at the same time. It's more of a driven thing because of perspective being looked upon versus kind of like
I almost would go out on a limb and say I don't think anybody will push themselves to extremes, and especially for extremes for a long period of time, unless something is really driving them. And the only thing that will really drive you that hard, I think, has a bit of dysfunction to it.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise you just lose the motivation pretty...
Yeah, so bottom line is, very insecure inside. I probably didn't show it on the outside, but I was there big time inside, and a need to prove myself to everyone that I matter and that, whatever.
Well, it's like everything's a challenge in a sense of like every day it's constantly trying to measure up to an imaginary standard.
Your own standard that you can't meet. You've set, and that others have caused you to set it up there, probably. I mean, combined with that, though, I naturally was a pretty competitive kid.
Yeah.
You put all these things together, and it just can create a little monster.
Yeah. But it has its positives.
It does have its positives, it does. But I think the message is that you do need at some point in your life learn to tame it and confront it and become, comfortable with it and start reeling back some of the dysfunction that comes out, the negative dysfunction that comes out of you, and I think out of that, and I think that the negative part of that shows up in all your relationships, and that's where it's bad.
Yeah, you
need to learn how to not be so selfish, because naturally, if you're pushing yourself, you're going to be selfish. You've got to learn to pull that all back and start learning to compromise. Some of these things that are later, some of the questions you're going to present to me, but you do have to learn to be able to compromise and think of others and be compassionate and all those things more than you naturally would be if you were left alone or you didn't check yourself at some point.
Yeah, it's a constant balance, though, between everything you're kind of dealing with in a sense of the time frame really reflects how much of that balance-wise can you be from selfishness to being more selfless and more out there, being willing to give up that time, and that's wasn't ever evolving and fluctuating. I mean, standard really. I mean, you're constantly, you want to be perfect of I'm there and I'm present, but at the same time you have goals, responsibilities, your own measures of success, your own personal things, and it's never completely even.
Right, and you get yourself to where you're basically on a little tightrope, just barely trying to stay balanced, because it's not like I didn't value relationships or didn't even understand that you do have to be present and you do have to sometimes do things you don't want to do. But for the first 30 years of my life, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of leeway in there, because what I'd chosen to do required it. It wouldn't let you do less. And it was either quit or fail or
get through it.
Get through it. And I guess to add to that, though, no one thinks purely, dysfunction and whatever. Like I said, I was a naturally kind of competitive kid anyway. 2, I love science and math. 3, I really was interested in medicine, and I did respect it as a career, and I did want to end up doing something that I felt would help people. So those were the the positive sides of it, and kind of the non-dysfunctional things. But I couldn't have achieved any of it without have that dysfunction in me driving me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's like a main, well, I don't know about a main, it's an ingredient in like a dish. I mean, it's only one part of it.
Yeah,
in the
but
sense.
It's the biggest part.
But it kind of does seem like the main central. Like if I'm making, like potato
it's
soup.
The vital. Okay,
I probably need potatoes.
Right. without the dysfunction of the potato, you'd have no potato soup. You could throw everything else in there, and it's not potato soup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a more fun note, delivering paper in your childhood.
Yeah.
Some pretty interesting times.
Yeah. Well, my parents, I think it was probably good. They didn't want to just give us stuff because, I mean, to be fair, we were fairly wealthy family for that area. Really, my dad was a dentist, but they felt there was a lot of value in appreciating what you have and how you got it, and learning to figure out, do I really want it, or do I just think I want it? Like, it's just given to you, who knows?
Yeah.
But if you have to actually, that was their litmus test for me, because I was always dreaming up things. I said, well, if you really, really want da-da-da-da-da, then you're going to have to earn some money and go buy it.
Yeah.
So they would help me, find a job, whatever it was to do. But I was in 5th grade. So wasn't very employable at that point.
Yeah.
But I had a friend that was Mike Bear, that was a good friend of mine, that was delivering morning newspapers, the Oregonian, the paper out of Portland that they delivered in Coos Bay. Coos Bay had its own little newspaper in the afternoon called The World, but this was the Oregonian. And every morning I had to deliver it. So I would get up about, 5 or so before school. And it was a pretty long paper route. I think it took me a good hour and a half or so to do it. And the daily papers weren't too terribly bad. Like, can't remember. I think I basically could stuff all those in one little thing. They had these things that went over your shoulders, papers in the back, papers in the front, so you could carry a whole bunch of them. I think I basically could walk and do all those. But man, when the Sunday paper hit, that thing, each one was like 4 times or 5 times as thick as normal. Then I had a little cart, and I would have to go out and come back and get more, and I had to put them all together. They deliver them in pieces, because some of the stuff was kind of printed, just whatever. But then the news that had happened the day before, that was in something else, and then they just drop off all these stacks, and you'd have to put them all together, and then it was just, I don't know, but it was huge stuff. So I would do that on Sunday mornings. And of course, this is, think about it now. Okay, my parents are just sleeping away, and they're, how old are you in 5th grade?
5th grade.
11?
11, 10, somewhere in there.
10 or 11, run around in the middle of the night by yourself, unprotected. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
But yes, there we were. I was going. And, but the 2 funny things out of that is, one, my parents were fairly active socially then, and a lot of times Saturday night they'd be coming home late, and my dad would say, "Hey kid, let me help you." And so those are kind of good nights. Yeah. That we'd load up the old station wagon, he'd drive me around, and I'd come back, get a newspaper, and go out and drop it, come back. The problem was my dad loved to smoke a pipe, and that station wagon was full of pipes. And I come back in there and turning green, run back out there. But that was sort of a fond memory in a way. But then there was the famous Big Wheel story, I think you're thinking of, and that was when Mike Bear and I used to meet up, because his route kind of just was on the other side of mine. Yeah. So we'd be in the middle of the morning in the dark, we'd meet up and just, laugh, cut up a little bit and whatever. But one morning he was a little bit late, it was dark, and I just heard this rattling noise. I didn't know what it was. And then this little figure pops up, and then there's Mike Bear, and he's dragging this big wheel that has rocks in the wheels, and it's making all this noise. And he said, "Hey, ride this thing down 10th Street, because there's no car." So it's at the top of this long hill, and we jumped out that thing with all our papers and on the big wheel, the 2 of us, and we were flying down that thing, and it was rattling and making all these noises, and you could almost you know, see the lights popping on as we went down there, and a couple people yelled at us and whatever. But we just had little things like that going on. We saved that big wheel forever. We were jumping that thing off cliffs and all kinds of stuff. And it was like 10th Street. You know, I lived off of 10th Street.
Yeah.
He lived up a hill on that side of 10th Street, and I lived down the hill on that side. And there was essentially kind of a cliff right there, and we would have two guys up there watching traffic. Someone up there, because you had to get speed to fly that thing off the cliff, and you had a competition to see who could fly it the farthest. So you had to get on that thing, not put on the brakes, go as fast as you could. When you came to a little hill, you had to roll off of it and let it go. And I remember Jeff Bodenheimer was there, a really timid guy. He wasn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to do it. Then he kind of did want to do it. And then we started talking to him too. He finally did it. He got up there and he said, go. And he comes and he hesitates a bit so that by now traffic's there. He's barely makes it through the traffic. And then he goes over the first little hill and then to the cliff. We say, jump, Jeff, jump. Jeff doesn't jump. Jeff flies off the cliff and just gets mangled, the poor kid. But anyway, enough of those stories. But that's kind of a lot of what happened in my day and age. No video games. What else are you going to do?
A lot of self-entertainment or entertainment.
Well, and parents just sent their kids off.
Yeah.
You know, they be home by lunch, be home by dinner. It was what I've told you is the pioneer spirit. The pioneers had a bunch of kids because some make it, some don't. That's just life.
That's what it is. I think that sets the stage of kind of how things were going along outside. But then kind of, and it's going to school-wise kind of shape how you get moving into other things. You were much more of kind of what's the best way to put it? I would say a dysfunctionally good student, almost, I guess, to go off your other word.
That would be probably a fair way to say it.
Academic-wise, didn't really have a struggle, but it was more the fact of concentration and interest. I don't know if it was interest per se or not.
It's kind of along those lines. I think. Well, it was two things. One, all my friends were kind of, big, sort of not academically talented jock type kids, and a little bit on the wild side on top of all that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to fit in, so my grades. I never talked about my grades. I almost basically hid my grades because I wanted to be known as an athlete.
Yeah.
And I played all the big sports, and I was good to very good, but never great. And so, probably part of this dysfunctional thing that was inside me, I didn't feel like I measured up in the thing that really mattered to me, which was sports. And then academically, for some reason, I just felt almost embarrassed by my grades. But in terms of the trouble I got into, I was just quick, like they'd give me an assignment, I'd just be done with it. And everybody else is still working on it. And what am I going to do? I got ADD and a ton of energy. I got in a lot of trouble for a while. I was in the principal's office a bunch and parent conferences. And finally, my mom knew that I doodled and stuff,
Yeah.
And, she said, I tell you what, first of all, they wanted to move me ahead of grade. And my mom just said, no, he's too small and he's too immature. So she wasn't going to let them do that. She said, but why don't you do this? And she gave him two suggestions. Just have him turn over his paper and draw, and then he'll quit bugging everybody else and let them finish.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, she said, just send him to the library,
Yeah.
And so, God, I read, they had this whole series of biographies I read. Thomas Jefferson, Rockefeller, Babe Ruth. I mean, just a wide variety of non-fictional people.
Yeah.
And then, but then some fiction as well. The Hardy Boys mysteries and Tom Swift, which was a science fiction based series of books.
Yeah.
I read all those things. I read all that stuff and read more. I mean, it's, I spent more time in the library or doodling on my text paper.
Than actually.
Yeah. And I remember that they, I remember they, they had me, and I never got all this. I was smart and stupid at the same time. I remember they had me write a book, a novel.
Mm-hmm.
I illustrated it and wrote it, and it's called Crank and Gear. They were two little mice, and they rode motorcycles and did all adventures and all this stuff. I did all this stuff, fully illustrated all this stuff. And then I think at one point I thought to myself, why is nobody else doing this? Well, they were doing it just to keep me busy and keep me out of trouble. And, things like spelling words, the spelling list, that would be your week's work, to learn the spelling words and do it at the end. I just memorized them immediately so that, I'm bored the whole week. Same thing, multiplication tables, I think that was a whole year. I think I learned them the first shot, I think, basically. Yeah. The whole table. It's just, I just had a lot of free time on my hands and got into a lot of trouble.
Were you ever diagnosed as ADHD, or did they ever
Well,
try that?
I don't think anybody was diagnosed.
I would say back in that time, probably no one.
Now, looking back upon it, I remember one person in particular that I know was ADD, hyperactive. He was all those things. Because they used to do, teachers used to have me tutor other kids to keep me out of trouble, but maybe to help them, and I had to try to tutor that guy. God, I didn't understand it, but he made me so angry because he just, and I don't even know if he was stupid. I think this kid's stupid, but I also remember he was so all over the place. He just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
I think I was probably a healthy dose of ADD, but I wasn't hyperactive. I was just bored.
Mm-hmm.
But my ADD is, I think a lot of people have ADD. I think there's range.
Well, I think it's very much a spectrum thing that, like, you're on there somewhere.
Mine was probably at the highest order where it's beneficial.
Yeah.
Because it was really helpful later in my profession, because although I can get distracted pretty easily if nothing's happening, but man, the flip side's true, that when everything's happening, it doesn't make me uncomfortable. I can just lock in. So that was actually an advantage.
It is an interesting dynamic that the like stimulus side, well, also the ability to kind of hyper focus.
I can hyper focus for sure. In fact, actually, it helped me. I used to study with headphones and Led Zeppelin and all kinds of stuff because, well, it keeps.
I listen to heavy metal when I study now, and I'll play it on.
There you go.
That's fun. I didn't know
that. It keeps my mind from wandering, because otherwise my mind will wander. Other things. I have like 3 thought processes going all the time. Complex thought process going all the time.
Yeah.
And it go back and forth to each one.
Yeah. Did you play the same songs, like the same Led Zeppelin songs when you're?
No, I would just turn it on to the local station.
Oh,
so it'd be like Led Zeppelin and a bunch of stuff. It was radio.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, if you try to do LPs every 10 minutes, you're getting up to flip it over. So.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I just did.
I guess you're kind of forced to.
Yeah, it went a lot of technology then.
Well, that's interesting. That's funny. So you go through kind of all this extra stuff where you're just getting kind of random things. Eventually, I think an interesting part is you took an IQ test somewhere in there, and you scored.
They used to give them to you, and you didn't even know they were IQ tests. You just have this testing every year, all the way through grade school and high school, for that matter.
Yeah.
And they never told you anything about it. You didn't even know. You just took it. You thought it was another test. And I didn't know.
That's fine.
Okay, so me getting in trouble and being bored, I think the excitement of doing something bad was fun. I never instigated these things, but I always had a mentor, an evil mentor in my life. Mm-hmm. And in high school and middle school, it was Craig Mathis, who, brilliant kid who went on to become quite a criminal. But it's too bad. But he was a real charismatic, fun kid. But he was so just loved trouble. But anyway, so he broke into. I don't remember how this all went down, but he broke into our files somehow. Like he was doing some kind of aid work for one of the teachers, and then he had, back then, high security. He just looked himself up. And he found some stuff, and then he looked me up, and he said, "Did you know your IQ is like 135 or 137 or something like that?" I said, "No." I said, "Oh, really?" But yeah, and it had been that way since I think it was first grade. They had some form of this testing. When I think back upon it, the most things I remember the most were they had patterns in there where you had to figure out what's the fifth, that kind of thing. And I was just looking through them, kind of like you did when they tested you when we had you tested for dyslexia. I don't know if you remember this, but they came out to they came out to us and they said, your son has a reading problem, not because he's not bright, it's because he's got dyslexia, and for that matter, he's actually brilliant. And they said, look at this. And they showed us these things, kind of like that verbal equivalence of that, not mathematical or visual, but just verbal things where this, well, then what's this? They said, well, you guys here, answer this. We said, well, we don't know. He said, well, he got that in about 5 seconds. And you were only in second grade.
Yeah.
Second grade, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of had the same sort of ability, so.
No, it's very similar how, talking through this, it's very, how you kind of describe going through. I remember being so bored doing things. It's just not like, it's the same thing of, there's very similar patterns in how you describe going
I think it's true for
school.
Both you kids.
Yeah.
Your mom, she's the outlier here.
Yeah.
She is smart, but she's still got a different kind of smart. It's a totally different kind of smart. She's not mathematical, she's not scientific, but she's so intuitive, and she's got so many really
different
great attributes, and she is smart. It's just not in those ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting how everyone pans out in their own little areas. So you get academically good, interesting curriculars on the outside. And then you go through kind of middle school, a trialing time, and eventually you get to high school, where academically you're still doing well, but then eventually is that your freshman year you take up, is that when you broke your leg?
No.
And then, you didn't break your leg till later.
Well, I add a little more detail to that just to explain those years, because what happened somewhere after 6th grade, probably middle schoolish. For us, middle school was 7th and 8th grade, just those 2 years. But my parents were worried enough about me, and I was starting to get in some pretty good trouble in the summertime, that they bought a little place up in the mountains, and we spent the whole summer up there. So now I'm isolated from all my friends, and that created more dysfunction, by the way, because now all my friends are in the know. Yeah. I've done stuff all summer long. I've done nothing. And then I show up September, and I don't know who's now paired with who, what the groups are, and I don't even have a group. So every fall, it was like I was reinventing the wheel for myself. I had some friends that were consistent, but most of my friends, we were up in the mountains to get away from them. Yeah. So, it wasn't like they were inviting them up there. But when I got into high school, then, all those things, plus, I didn't grow. And so I played football, basketball. All of it. All that stuff. And we're a 5A school. It's a big school, and there's big kids. Our linebacker was 6'3", 250. I mean, these are big kids. I was going into high school, I was probably 5'3", 110 pounds. Yeah. And so, again, I'm competitive and all that stuff. And up in the river, we used to swim and do all that stuff. And I said, well, I can swim. Maybe I'll go out with the swim team. And I met this kid named Ted Hutton. And Ted Hutton was kind of a goofusy. I really eventually grew to really like him because he was goofusy. He was a funny kid, but he was just sort of a goofusy, not popular, kind of nerdy kid. But he was a good swimmer. I thought, shit, if this kid's a good swimmer, I'll be amazing. I go in there, and Ted Hutton's his name. He's kicking my butt. Yeah. Not only he's kicking my butt, but we had an AAU program. So even throughout the high school years, those little AAU kids would swim with the high school team, the better ones. There were 6-year-olds beating me in my freshman year. I mean, lapping me. But I was just so determined. I just kept working, and pretty soon I got to where those little 6-year-olds couldn't even catch me anymore. But I got to the point where in my first year, never having swam before, and most of those other people have been swimming since they were little, I was already the fastest breaststroker on the team. I don't remember what I did in the districts that year, and I don't think I went to the state championships in any way, shape, or form. But by my sophomore year, I'd broken an 11-year-old district record. I'd started setting pool records everywhere. And I went up to the state championships. I was 15, weighed 130.
Yeah.
And took 8th, which was pretty decent.
Pretty good for
against
year.
All these big. I mean, I looked around on the blocks; it was huge.
Yeah.
But then my junior year, I just got the flu badly right around the district championship, so I didn't even go to the district championships because I was sick, and so I didn't qualify for the state. So, but that's when Craig Matson said, "Hey, they all think you're going to the state championships," because it was pretty well known by then that I was pretty good.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Let's just pretend like we went," because he's a swimmer too.
Yeah.
And so we already by then had a homeroom kit where we had copies of all the homeroom teacher signatures, and we had teacher passes, and so I was a pretty good artist, so I wrote notes for both of us, signed.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Roblin, really good guy, was our homeroom teacher for both of us. I wrote us those passes.
Yeah.
And Craig's parents, they had 5 kids. He was the last of 5 kids. And they were worn out and tired people. And they lived upstairs, and they had a whole basement downstairs that was almost self-sufficient. Like it had a little bar area, refrigerator, and a separate entrance. And Craig's room was down there.
Yeah.
And so we basically lived there for like 4 days straight. His parents didn't even know. Didn't go to school. Everything was great. We were down there, it's Oregon, so we're drinking, we're reefing it up, we're doing all kinds of stuff. And we decided we were going to go to Sambo's. So I went to Sambo's, which is how stupid you are when you're a high schooler. Sambo's is a restaurant. I go to this named Sambo's, how inappropriate, but yeah, Sambo's. But we go there, and we sit down on the booth, and we are eating a huge Pakistan pancakes, and I look up, and there's Mr. Roblin looking me right in the face with his entire family, and he liked me. Yeah. As much trouble as I got into, I was always a nice kid. People liked me, and I was nice to people, but I was just rambunctious. But he looks up at me, and first he smiles like, hey, Mark. And then he kind of gets this, wait a minute, you're supposed to be out of town. And that turned into a big deal. So then I had to go in for that. I had to talk to him about that. But again, because, I wasn't I wasn't mean.
Yeah.
And people liked me, and I was doing well in school, that, they cut me some slack, and I don't remember what I had to do. But it wasn't too long after that where I got nabbed smoking a reefer walking between classes. That was a little bigger deal. But then Mr. Eckert, he liked me too, and he laid down the law and said, if you ever get in trouble again, there's going to be problems. But they kept all that stuff off my record. Mm. Would have taken me back then, I think. Medical school. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the theme of my life up to that point, and theme going through high school.
Mm-hmm. Well, the time's difference.
Well, by the way, people were generally more forgiving back then.
That's right.
I think people had a better understanding that kids were just kind of knotheads, and
you're kind of an
you got to cut them some slack a little bit. I mean, you can't let them go out and do dangerous things, but you don't want to ruin their lives either. Mm-hmm. So I think they were more careful not to push it to that extreme. They'll push it to an extreme, and you will, be held accountable like you should. But I think they were careful, at least in kids that they knew had potential and knew that were just trying, kind of floundering, trying to find themselves. Mm-hmm. I think they were careful not to. And I was one of those. They didn't want to tank me. Yeah. Thank goodness they didn't.
Doesn't really do anyone any good.
No. So that was a good thing.
I think it's kind of interesting to hear about. Talked to Bill the other day, and he was talking about that. I was trying to figure out how you do that as a teacher and going through as like an administration. How do you set a tone that's And he didn't have a perfect answer either, but it's just interesting that you kind of make that point of how he kind of, his perspective, well, that's more been lost now, and for you to kind of say that, it seems like it kind of correlates to.
I think the world's become more adversarial, and parents have become more aggressive about trying to manipulate the system for their kids instead of letting their kids just work the system for themselves academically or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. They're trying to change everything for their kid, which does their kid no good, I don't think. I think it does them harm.
Yeah.
But now they have to start setting mandatory stuff because parents, they see something that some other kid got that theirs didn't, they don't care.
Yeah.
They are going to complain. They're going to bring it up. There are avenues to bring it up. So now I think teachers are bound by just these mandatory things. I don't think you have a lot of leeway or flexibility anymore. Back then you did.
I think it's a lot of I think kind of playing into that will also be how quickly people can find out of that if, well, Susie got away with A, why is my kid not getting, and it comes just like a...
I just think, too, you're right about that.
I think it makes it hard.
I think parents just generally didn't think to not hold their kids accountable. Even bad parents with bad kids, it's kind of like, well, he's going down that path, then he's getting what he deserves. It's like, they aren't blaming everybody else.
This falls into the JFK quote. Not ask what America can do for you, but what can you do for America?
Yeah.
And it's it just doesn't. It's very much seems like it falls into the first of what's being done for me.
Right.
And I think I just think it's a large problem of...
I agree. This is all part of the same thing we've been talking about, how parents go in and get angry and try to coerce their teachers into doing stuff for their kids because it's all about them.
Yeah.
And it's all about them, not even their kids. Yeah. I don't want my kid to not have the grade that Susie got. That doesn't look good, is really what they're saying. Mm. They claim they're doing it for their kid, but they're really kind of doing it for themselves when you think about it. And furthermore, that's not good for your kid. Let your kid learn how to earn his grades and whatever they're capable of, make them feel good about it. If they're working hard and doing their best, that's good.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So
move on. Enough of the political stuff.
So you go.
So high school. So I got to figure out.
You get back in from your sophomore year. You get sick. Don't make it.
So now I'm going into my senior year, my last year. My junior year, I got sick.
Or junior year.
Sophomore year, I won the district championships and whatever.
Oh, okay.
8th.
All right.
Then my next year, where I was getting bigger and stronger, I got sick and didn't even swim in the district championships. Yep. And then senior year, where I'd even bulked up more. Now I'm just more normal size, probably where I would have even taken greater strides forward. Dirt bike accident in September, and just crushed my femur.
Well, let's talk about this dirt bike accident happened, because that's also an interesting story on what.
Well, so it's Oregon dunes, so there's 40 miles of these huge sand dunes, and there's these big bowls that will get created that are probably 300 feet deep easily. Mm-hmm. And
well, the way the sand dunes kind of work, to give an image, it's very much desert-ish like.
Yeah, looks like the Mojave Desert.
You have these rolling hills of sand that's been windblown.
Yeah.
But to kind of foreshadow what can happen is it kind of blows out from one side, and so you end up with
a rounded side this way, and you got a cliff over
on the other side, and you can't see it.
Well, what we were doing earlier in the day, me and Ron Kaufman, we were out there, and we would come up to the edge of, when we knew where we were, we'd come up to one of those huge bowls and just fly up to the lip and then pop it, with the gas and fly. And you would free fall, 30 or 40 feet before you then caught the sand and went down into the bottom of the bowl. And by then you're flying. And I can remember as you're coming down and coming up the other side, you could feel G-forces pushing you down into the motorcycle and then coming up the other side. And we did that. And then we were just going back to the truck, and we were just kind of cooling off. It was a hot summer day, and sun was right there, kind of off the coast, I guess, setting. We were, going, it was the afternoon. So a lot of bright light coming towards us, and we were just rolling over these dunes, and there were a bunch of hills, and I was doing the same, and then suddenly that last one there, it's like we just talked about. It's a cliff, and I didn't see it in time, and so I tried to gun and pull the front end up, but I couldn't quite get it up, so I flew off of that thing, and then it was a Suzuki RM125, so it's yellow. Front wheel hit. I went over the front and started tumbling. And then I remember catching a flash of yellow over here, and then bam, nails my femur. I mean, I heard it, felt it crunch. And then I think I just sort of, I know I passed out. I don't know how for how long, but I was just laying there, kind of like you'd be sitting like this.
Yeah.
And one foot's normal, the other one's like this.
Yeah.
Except my leg is like this, except it's broken up here, and it's weird.
Yeah.
And I think I remember the motorcycle going wee in the background because the
throttle was stuck.
And then Ron Kaufman found me, and so I see him looking at my leg and said, this doesn't look good. And he took off. Back then there's no phones.
You can't have a phone to call.
And there's nobody around, so he just took off to try to find somebody. And ultimately, they called the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard sent a helicopter out there. And then, they cranked my leg up, and then brought me into the hospital. But then they were going to operate, but then my temperature is 104, and so they didn't operate because they didn't know what was wrong with me. And I'd had a bad summer that summer. I just wasn't swimming well. I was losing weight. It turns out I had mononucleosis, and so once they finally knew what I had, and before they finally did operate, which is a week later, they just put a pin through my tibia. And I don't know anything medical then. I just know they tell me, hey, these guys are going to come in and put a pin through your tibia. And I'm saying, oh, okay. I'm thinking, I mean, think about what that really means. Well, I see these two big burly guys come in, and they have those old-fashioned crank drills, the big drill bit.
Yeah.
And they numb the skin a little, and then they just start boring through and they're big because they're holding me down because it's painful as crap. And then they stick a rod through there, and then a kind of a horseshoe thing, and then a rope pulley and weights to keep it in traction so it won't contract on you. And a week later, they operated on me, put a pin in it, opened up this side, and apparently there was a big mess in there. They had to kind of find pieces of bone and kind of mesh it together so that I wouldn't lose length in my femur. And then eventually got home. But as soon as I could, I started swimming again. So I don't even remember when I finally got in the pool again, but God, I lost a ton of weight. So I was behind the 8 ball quite a bit. Lost weight, lost muscle mass, lost everything. So I just started working at it again. And so what is that? 5 months later is district championships and the state championships. Somehow along the way, I got myself back in shape, and I won the district championship, but I didn't go as fast as I had back in my sophomore year because, I had one leg, basically, it seemed like. But I did make it to the state championships, and I got 11th out of 18, something like that. Rod in my leg.
Pretty good.
But even then, I remember, I think I told you this before, I think that might have been the time when steroids were finally hitting. I swear, when I was up on those blocks, I was even bigger now than I was back when I was a sophomore. But I looked around me, and these guys next to me, many of them, I mean, they were just huge, like muscle bound.
Yeah.
Acne and all the things. I'm just wondering if a few of them were that way. But regardless.
It'd be hard to ever. It would be. I can't tell you when exactly steroids hit the.
I really don't know
scene,
either.
But that would have been late
That was late 70s.
Late 70s, which seems like it could be.
I don't really know. But bottom line is, then I decided, I got an offer to go swim for Southern Oregon State, so I went there.
Yeah. Southern Oregon State swam out of the pool. Wasn't the best academic there.
Okay, so, well, by the way, swimming, I don't know if we mentioned this. Swimming is a hard sport. It's 2 workouts a day. So it's an hour and a half in the morning, and it's 2.5 hours in the afternoon. And then it's gone, you travel to go have meets with various high school same, but in college same thing, to have various universities in California and Oregon and other places. And swim meets, they go 3 days. It's 2 or 3 days. It's all the semi-finals, prelims during the day to make qualifications to swim the finals at night. And a lot of times they're bracketing down, so you swim once, swim again, and then you swim the final that night, and in several different strokes. But that goes throughout the whole weekend. And I would swim. I was mainly a breaststroker, but once I got into college, I'm swimming the 100 and the 200, and I'm swimming the medley, and I'm on the medley relay team, and I'm a good enough freestyler that I'm on the freestyle medley. So I'm swimming a ton. Mm-hmm. On top of that, I'm partying it up with minimal studying like I'd always done. And my first report card I got down there, they had like a midterm report card, was 2.86. And back then, 4.0 is the top. There's no 4.55, any of that stuff. 4.0, that was it.
Yeah.
And so, it was pretty hard to get a 4.0. But I got 2.86. And I'd never been below a 3.5 or so in my entire life. So
it's quite an awakening from...
It was a what the hell moment. It was like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
You're at a crossroads here. You're going to have to figure something out, because whatever you're doing is not working.
Yeah.
So I tried to party a little less, and I did a little bit. But I mainly just figured out, how am I going to be more efficient? I only have so much time.
Yeah.
I've got to become more efficient in terms of studying. And I got way more efficient. And I've told you some of the stuff I learned to do, and that really helped. I could get a massive amount of information into my mind quickly and then do well.
Yeah.
And have time to do all these other things. So I brought my grades up quite a bit to like a 3.45 when I left there. So
so
I left after my freshman year. That was the second thing I decided, is swimming and medical school are not going to go together. It just takes too much. I mean, not only is the time of the swimming and being gone for the meets, but you're tired.
Yeah.
You got chlorine in your eyes. You've been swimming twice a day. I mean, you're just tired.
Yeah.
So I decided to go up to Oregon State, no longer swim. I played club water polo, but I didn't swim. But at Oregon State for the next 3 years, I was 4.0s almost every single grade point, every report card. But the funny thing is, when I showed up at Oregon State for the very first time as a signed a guidance counselor, and I walked in there, and he said to me, "So I see you're pre-med." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yep." And I said, "Don't you worry, I'll get that grade point up." And then I did what I did.
So it worked out in the end.
Yeah.
I did think that's it's a funny intro to the school.
Oh yeah, he thought, not a chance in hell you're going to medical school.
Well, yes. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it was basically that. Good luck with that.
After Oregon State, you then applied to medical school there?
Yeah, Oregon Health Sciences University. And then I applied to a few other places. Vanderbilt, actually. I got on the waiting list at Vanderbilt. I got on the waiting list somewhere else. I've sort of forgotten. And I got on the waiting list at Oregon Health Sciences University, and then I got in there.
Yeah. And then you go there for right out of college, right afterwards. And at that point, what was kind of the intro to that, like getting thrown into...
Oh, it was...
So I imagine that's a jump.
You thought college was hard. The medical school was several magnitudes harder in terms of the volume they're thrusting at you. I wouldn't say, by that point, anything was any more complicated, because once you're in college and you're doing biochem 450 and zoology 4 something and whatever, those are pretty high level.
Your thinking's pretty high up there. It's more just the workload changes significantly.
And you thought you were busy in college.
Yeah.
But in medical school, there isn't fall term or midterms or anything. Each class only goes as long as is needed to shove down your throat a massive amount of information and then test you on it, then you move on to something else. So you're taking finals all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's no like, okay, wait to the end of the term. It's all the time.
Yeah.
And medical school, that was definitely hard for me. I think there's probably a handful, like maybe 4 or 5 kids that were just super brainiacs where it was a challenge but not super hard. I think most of us, it was super hard.
Yeah.
We had one guy flunk out, had to repeat. I don't know what became of him. And then we had another guy that he just cracked, never to be seen again. He just cracked. But once they get you in medical school, they're invested in you financially and otherwise, and they don't want you to quit. They don't want you to drop out. So, you know, for you to actually fail or crack is, you know, rare. Well, not rare, but, you know, it happens to some degree. I don't know how to term it, but they don't want to lose you. So they're doing all they can to keep you in there, but they tried everything for this one kid, and he just couldn't keep up with it, so he had to repeat. But the other kid, he was so hell-bent on trying to, you know, maintain the 90th percentile that all of us did in college.
Yeah.
Now you're stratified amongst those people.
Now you're at
10% of the top 10%. You're stratifying that out. It's kind of like going from high school to college, basketball, football, whatever, and then from there to pros.
Yeah.
You know, superstars become average.
Yeah.
So, but I fortunately had a firm grip on that because I knew I liked playing basketball and I liked lifting weights, and you know, I kind of knew that outside activities are important, and if I had to give up all that just to get into that, and I would have, to get into the 90%, it just wasn't it wasn't worth it to me. For me, the gold standard was, do I understand what I'm doing? And that is the easiest way to memorize stuff, by the way. I think Kelly said the same thing, and I agree with him. You can memorize a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
But it's way more easier to forget that. And it's way more easy to not really know that you don't know it, because all you've done is memorize it. Mm-hmm. But if you actually take the time to learn it and know it, you're going to remember it better, and you'll be able to use it better, longer, retain it longer, later. So I felt really, really obligated to know what I was doing. I did not want to be any kind of physician one day that didn't know what they were doing. Yeah. So for me, the grades didn't matter as much as, do I really know what's going on? Do I really trust myself? And I've worked myself to that standard, and I think that I accomplished it. I think when I came out, I felt all the years, my practice and everything else, I felt pretty comfortable with it. I think it worked right for me.
I think that's an interesting perspective. I think especially with what you were doing of having to understand. I think that's pretty vital.
But don't you agree that it's much easier to memorize something than to actually truly know it?
Yeah.
You can easily remember something and go in, just memorize it, go in and do pretty well in the test.
Yeah.
But you'll do much better if you actually know it, and you don't know it until you study it with the intention of knowing it.
Yeah.
Then you find out what actually you don't know when you go into it with that mindset, and you then clarify that. You then have to go and clarify that.
Yeah.
And then incorporate that into your knowledge. That's what takes you up into the tippy top level. Mm-hmm. The people that do that either can do it naturally, which I think there's a small subset of people that are so brilliant. But I think that there's a large group of people that are smart enough that if they do what I just said, take the time to figure out what you don't know by trying to know it.
Yeah.
And then figure out what you don't know and incorporate it in there. Now you know it.
Yeah. I was thinking
it's functional.
Yeah. I'll tell you it's a lot more functional. It took a while to figure that out, though.
Yeah. Well, I think our family and you kids, you and Maddie, just have pretty good memories naturally, so you can skid by. So could I by just memorizing stuff.
Well, what I used to do is,
but you don't always know it, as you probably learn.
Whenever we would have like, whenever there was like vocabulary or definition based test or exam, I would just memorize what the first three letters of each or the first three words were of each definition, and I realized the teacher would just copy and paste them. And so I knew if I could just memorize the first three words, that I could just do the vocab. And
well, that won't happen in a medical school.
Like that. But then it gradually evolved to where I'd memorize a certain phrase of it and then how I would use it.
Yeah.
But at first I clued in that they were just using. Yeah. They maybe change like a word here or there, but I was like, you're using the same.
Yeah.
So I just memorized the sheet.
Well, I mean, the farther you get along, though, the more extensive the testing is, and you just really do have to know it. Like,
well, exactly.
The national boards in medical school were 2 days of an SAT-like test, like just question after question after question, 6 hours each day. And that was halfway through. Then at the end of the medical school, you do the same thing again. And then at the end of your first year, your internship year, you do it again. And it's a crazy type of testing then. Yeah. This is, again, before computers. So I remember how it worked. That was an unusual test because it was basically trying to do what they do on computers, really.
Yeah.
Just in a crude format, because you are now given patient situations with, you can order a test and then you open another box and then you get the result. And way back here, you didn't need that test, or you order the wrong test, you can go way down there and be way off track. And there's no going back. So that test was actually very complex and stressful, but all those things, you walk out of there thinking you didn't pass or you didn't do well, and then I always came out doing well, so that was good. And then in my residency, they had us just take the written exam just to see what we knew. So it didn't count, but we took it. So we took a whole day testing. I think that was just a day testing. And then after the 3 years was up, 1 year intern, 3 years residency, you would actually take the real test, which was basically similar to that one.
But for residency, I think that's interesting. So residency, you go from medical school in Oregon, and then you go all the way across to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So not only do you change, there's a lot of big times of kind of changing.
Yeah.
And so progressing your career along, but also huge moment in life of going from being on the West Coast always to now you move on to the East Coast. And then, well, I guess Vanderbilt wasn't too much of I guess it was a different city, but culture-wise, Oregon's pretty.
It was as much different as it was similar. I'll say that. It was a lot different than what I was used to because, I mean, Southern culture was very traditional back then, and I was raised, my family, to their credit, raised us that all people are the same and you treat everybody the same. I don't care if they're picking up the trash. I don't care if they're asleep on a park bench and they're homeless. You treat everybody with respect. You treat them the same. You don't have this personality for that person and this personality for that person.
Yeah.
You are kind and caring to everyone. And back, it was still somewhat prevalent in the South when I got there.
Well, what time?
87.
Yeah.
There were still a lot of white supremacy is way too strong a word, but some of the older people, I mean, the N word was still used quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I'd never used it. I still don't like it. I never used that word. And I never thought of people that way. I don't know.
It was a different culture.
I remember the first house I bought was over by Cleveland Park, and the little lady next to me was probably at that time in her 70s, maybe 80s.
Yeah.
And I remember her, she told me, she said, "What are you doing all that work for? You just hire yourself a black." I said, "Excuse me?" But then, of course, there she was, this little old lady, and this big, huge black guy that was probably 6'3". I mean, just a big guy.
Yeah, big guy.
And to his credit, he was just calm and quiet, to her nittering and nattering and treating him so disrespectfully and mean and just saying horrible things. And then she would walk away from that and come over to me and sweet as pie. and I was really torn by all that, because I did like her, and she was, I think, at her heart
nice.
I don't know. It's hard to say at her heart. I don't know. I just didn't get that whole thing.
Yeah.
And not everybody was like that, but there's enough people like that that I felt really out of sort with that for quite some time.
Yeah. Interesting fact. In a lot of the deeds in I want to say in the South, you can still find where it'll say this property can't be sold to like African Americans, and it's still there because it's written in the legal.
Yeah.
So if you go like in the historic deeds for I won't say it's not all.
Doesn't surprise me,
but there's a good amount of deeds that will have some sort of language in there to that extent, which just kind of shows the historical like tradition.
Yeah,
I don't say traditions, but
that
historical.
It doesn't surprise me. But anyway, things have progressed.
Things
I
change.
visually saw things progress in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. Residency. You go there for 3 years. At that time, were you doing your was it then or in medical school that you did the internship or whatever you did?
Internship is your first year after medical school.
Because you had an interesting the thing the way you worked on there.
So when we got out of medical school, you know, you're heavily coddled by, you've got to, you know, you might be a third year medical student. Well, there's a fourth year usually present there ahead of you. And then there's a first year or an intern, and then there's a chief resident, and then there's an attending. So there's all these layers of people you can kind of refer to. You're never completely responsible or independent, but you know, as you progress through there, you're getting more independence and more responsibility. Where I went for my internship was in University of Washington Hospital in Spokane, Washington, called Deaconess.
Yeah,
it's a level 1 trauma center. So we did open heart, we did, you know, neonatal surgery, we did trauma, gunshot, all that stuff, and helicopters flying. But back then, attendings, they went home at night.
Yeah. So
when I was on call, I was it. And the other part of the puzzle is that back then, the role of the physician was clearly just different than all other medical providers. The next most educated and capable position was a nurse, and there was a huge gap. And it's not because they weren't capable; it's just they weren't taught. So we were taught, you know, how to run and manage a code, you know, all the ACLS stuff, all the algorithms. The algorithms back then were more complicated. Just if this, do that, if this, do that, if this, do that, if this, do that. Don't do this because that might happen. Yeah. Don't make the mistake to use this one. They'll die if you do this one, then they won't. But this one kind of looks like that. I mean, it was kind of stressful.
Yeah.
But our call room, that was the other thing. Our call room was it was in the basement, and the top 6 floors of 11-story building or something were all the patient floors, and the ICUs were way up there. So when they had things go bad, they'd call me, and I had a beeper.
Yeah.
And I basically, you know, back when I first started, you know, I was first on call, I was all hyper and worried and scared, and I wouldn't even take the elevator. I'd run up there because I was thinking, they're going to die before I get there. Yeah. You get up there and you're like, you're going to die. Yeah. But you would get there, and there would be a crowd of people with these anxious, nervous, expectant looks on their faces, just like waiting for something to happen. And you just jump in there, and you know, there'd been enough time in the past. Sometimes things were kind of dire, but yeah, you'd have to immediately figure out what the situation was, and you know, start doing CPR, get the paddles, get the drugs. I mean, you just had to run it because if you didn't, nobody else was. Yeah. But to come out of that coddled environment at medical school, and my first night I'm on call, and that scared the crap out of me. I mean, I spent, quite a few weeks anyway, but but then you kind of slowly get your
understanding and bearings, and
and I think that's true for everybody and everything. Every new job, every new city you go to, whatever, it's anxious a bit and scary, and you think, did I make the wrong decision? Am I going to be able to do this? You'll think all those thoughts always. That's normal.
Yeah.
Every change you make. That's why you don't want to make changes, right away. Give it some period of time, a year or more, and let it settle in, and then see what you think. Sometimes you'll think completely differently afterwards.
I think that's a good piece of advice for anyone. When you graduated from residency, then
so I went from, by the way, Deaconess Hospital in Spokane, packed up all my belongings in a diesel Blazer and drove over the Rocky Mountains, barely made it, all the way to Nashville, and arrived. Spokane had just gotten its first 70-degree weather day, peak.
Yeah.
Nights were still in the 30s, and I pull into, and this was in July. It's like,
wow.
And in July, when I showed up, it was about 104 in Nashville, and probably 100% humidity, which I'd never experienced before. I was thinking, again, speaking of what the hell I got myself into. And then we go, to this big opulent theater on the medical campus with massive paintings taller than this room of all the famous people, Osler and all these people that have been, faculty at Vanderbilt. And the president of the medical school gets up there and gives us a speech to tell us how lucky and fortunate we are to be at Vanderbilt. And I've told you this before, but the conclusion of that whole thing was, some say that Vanderbilt is the Harvard of the South, but we at Vanderbilt prefer to think of Harvard as the Vanderbilt of the North. At the end, drop the mic, out we went. But it was kind of a lot of pressure on your shoulders right out of the get-go. And, so then we whipped into that and did the testing I already told you about. But the unique thing about surgery and anesthesia, they're the only two that do this, is we have to do oral boards. So you go, you practice 1 year, then you have to get on a plane, go fly somewhere, and you go in, and they're at hotels, and you have a bunch of hotel rooms, like, I forget.
It's lined up kind of in a hallway where, like, you go in a door, A, B, C, or D.
Into a hotel room.
Yeah.
And then in there, they have set up a table, and they'll have 2 examiners and then an apprentice examiner. So 3 people there typically. And you arrive, though, everybody's in a suit, and everybody's sweating and shaking. And I mean, because it's nerve-wracking, because your people who are examining you, your examiners, are people who have written textbooks that you studied from in your medical programs. I mean, they're like the top dogs, and they're full of themselves, and they're not particularly friendly. And so they would give you, the way it all started is you sit in this little chair outside that hotel room listening to what's going on in there, and it doesn't sound pretty. I mean, you just hear muffled sounds, and I don't know, you could just feel the adrenaline coming out of there. You get a little stem that says something simple, like 67-year-old lady with a history of heart disease, smoker with COPD, is in a car accident. She's fractured her femur. She has internal bleeding, and she shows up in the emergency room, and these are her vitals.
That's your old script.
You're just going, shit, I can think of a million ways this can go bad. And I know they're going to try to find because their goal is to make you kill the patient somehow.
Yeah.
Or just demonstrate that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's okay if the patient dies, because that's the other thing they want to get across. Despite your best efforts in doing things correctly, sometimes patients die.
Yeah.
And they don't even miss a beat. Okay, now your next patient. that one just died. Let's go to next. So you do that. You do that. It's about 15 minutes of hell, and you do know that your only way out of that room is some lady who has cat glasses and a high neck, business suit comes by and raps on the door with a spoon. And you're just going, please spoon, please spoon. And then bam, bam, bam. You go, oh. But guess what? You go down the hall to the next chair, and you get the next stem in the next room. It's just, that had to be the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life.
I bet so. I mean,
and the pass rate is like 33 or more % of the people fail. I mean, you got to go back and do it again. It's rough. It's
a brutal experience to go through. Of just the sheer pressure of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's not my thing, by the way. I'm not a public speaker, and I'm not comfortable with it. So that is the worst thing for me from that standpoint. So just that side, in fact, that side of it was harder on me than the actual knowledge part of it. The knowledge part I wasn't afraid of. It was just being on the spot like that. Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of, I guess.
But you're on the spot. Yeah.
I think to go back a little bit, to kind of clarify, what took you towards anesthesia over everything else? Because we didn't really hit on that.
So that's a multifaceted answer, but some things that play into it are that back in my day. By the way, let me throw this in there because I think this is important. You got to remember that all the way through residency, we had no personal computers. Nobody had them. We had no phones. We had no electronic devices. You had to memorize everything. You just had to know it. And you better know it because the other piece of the puzzle is back then there were no bad teacher laws. You couldn't get in trouble as an attending being too harsh on someone. I think a lot of them considered it an act of honor to tear you apart. And so if you didn't know something, you were doomed publicly in front of everyone. So as I was going through all the rotations, every specialty has a personality. And I always thought I wanted to be a surgeon. And part of it was just sort of a pie in the sky dream because MASH was real popular then. I don't know if you know about that, but it was a sitcom, a weekly sitcom that involved a MASH unit in Korea. And it was a comedy, but it was a well-done comedy with Alan Alda. I don't know if you know him, but it was really brilliantly written, and it really, I hate to say it, that was a large part of what motivated me to even want to go to medical school. But they were surgeons, and I wanted to be a surgeon. And our family friends, the Flanagans, they both were surgeons. One an eye surgeon, one a general surgeon, and I kind of respected them. So there were a lot of reasons that made me want to be a surgeon. And I was artistic, so I even had the idea of maybe being a plastic surgeon someday because I took art all the way through college, high school and college. So that's what I just thought I was going to be. So I didn't get to my surgery rotation until my last year, my 4th year of medical school, and I had to start getting out my applications. So I filled out my applications for surgery programs. Back then, of course, no, it's all by handwritten stuff. You can mail it. So during this surgery rotation, I came across some of the meanest, nastiest people I've ever met in my life. Just big, huge conferences were tearing people apart. I don't remember if I told you this, but probably did. But one of my friends, Keith Paget, nice guy, kind of a big, chubby kind of guy, just quick to laugh, good sense of humor. One of those guys, though, that when he got nervous would kind of chuckle and laugh. I mean, that was kind of his way of dealing with stress and stuff like that. So here we are, this big surgical conference, and he's presenting something before me, and I'm sitting watching this, and I'm up next. And they start nailing him to the wall about something. And then, of course, he gets nervous, and he does that chuckly thing. And one of these surgeons just stops and says, "Stop. What's so funny? You care to share with this entire room what's funny? Because I don't see anything funny here." And this poor Keith he's about to just drop dead. And it just goes on like that for about 10 minutes and said, well, I think you're finished. Next.
Oh, God.
Thank God mine went well. I didn't get torn apart, but God, I mean. So anyway, so I thought to myself, I don't want to.
I don't see myself fitting in the.
I don't want to be. I just don't want to be around people like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the more you tried to talk to them, you realize that they were at the hospital all the time. Mm-hmm. They never saw their families. Their wives hated them. Their kids hated them. They hated them. That's why at the hospital, it kind of worked both ways. I mean, I just didn't want to live like that. And then I took an anesthesia rotation, and it had a lot of the things I liked about surgery. Because what I liked about surgery was, doing things with your hands, having procedures, rapid turnover. I liked, my mind. I get bored like medicine. And geez, you would sit there talking about these patients and generating these long lists of potential diagnoses with 90% of them are not possible, but you had to make this big list anyway. And I'm just thinking, let's just go treat this guy. But no, you spent like a half hour just talking about it. It was killing me. My ADD was still peaking about that. It was killing me. So I knew I didn't want to do that. So I wanted something fast-paced, and I liked to use my hands. So anesthesia had all those things, lots of procedures, very fast-paced. But the other thing I liked about it is, well, one, the people there were kind of good-natured people that had hobbies and interests outside of life, and they could actually do it, even back then, because we didn't have patients. We're totally, consultation service. So all of our patients are in the hospital. When we go home, they stay there. We're home.
Yeah.
So I liked all of that. I liked being able to have a life. I just figured that's for me. So I canceled all my surgery applications and applied to anesthesia programs.
I think I think it's one kind of fascinating to hear it from the outside of that you don't really think about these professions having their own uniqueness.
Oh yeah, they
you don't
definitely do. Yeah.
Because most of the time you're not interacting with them. I mean, like from a patient side.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be interacting with one of them or someone, but then you're either kind of like a family doctor or physician that you see, and then maybe you go in for surgery, but then it's, you're out. So.
Well, and I think they're self-selective too, because, someone who just really loved the internal medicine thing where it's slower and it's probably more in depth for each thing and very talky and all that. If you go on to dang surgery anesthesia, none of that exists. It's like you got to cut to the chase rapidly, probably more so in anesthesia than even surgery, because when we have people coming in and they're dying and you haven't even met them before, they're just rolling in there. There's a few tidbits of information, but oftentimes there's very little or no information. You've got to figure out, what's going on. And when someone has no blood pressure, well, is it the pump? Is it the pipes? Is it the lack of volume? Is it all those things? Yeah. And the treatment for one can be harmful to the other. You've got a lot of figuring out to do. So you have to do a lot of rapid diagnosis quickly and do the right things quickly to save their life. I think that would be totally, unappealing to someone who loved medicine, and vice versa. Yeah.
It just kind of doesn't fit in them.
People are just different minds, different personalities, different,
Let's see. So once you finish residency, do you go on to
then you go get a job.
Okay, so that's where I thought we were at. So then I think talk about a little bit of your job experience, because you go to one place was it Florida?
Oh, well, that's back when I was interviewing.
Okay.
Interviewing for my residency.
So gotcha.
That whole interviewing trip, I decided to go out to the East Coast because I'd never been anywhere else. So I applied exclusively out there. And back then you could buy this 1 or 2 week domestic airfare where you could fly anywhere you wanted within that time period. For one price. So I just lined up all these interviews. I started up north at Dartmouth, then went over to Chicago, and then over to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Then might have done Case Western Reserve. It's Rush Presbyterian in Chicago. Then Vanderbilt. No. Then Worcester, Massachusetts, UMass Medical School. Then Vanderbilt. Then South Carolina. Threw that in there.
Yeah.
And then Augusta. And the last thing was going to be Miami, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So tidbits of all those things that are interesting. So here I am, basically a hayseed kid out of blue collar, Nowheresville, Oregon. I go fly into Chicago at midnight. And Rush Presbyterian is right next to Cook County Hospital, which is in South Chicago.
Yeah.
Which even back then, even worse, was a war zone. It's where they sent the military to train for battle, the military physicians to train for battle because it most closely resembled a battlefield, gunshot wounds and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So there I am going into there at midnight, and I came in on a taxi from the airport, and I'm going to like the Ramada or something like that. And it's kind of wedged between. Rush Presbyterian is close to Cook County, and Cook County's there. And I get off and out of that taxi, and this guy's looking me up and down. This guy's been in the South Side of Chicago for a long time. He says, "By the way, it's time and a half after midnight." I said, "Well, okay, sir." And I give him time and a half and tip him, and he's kind of looking at me like, "Whoa!" He takes off, and then I hear gunshots off in the background, and I go in there, but then I think, wait a minute, why is it time after midnight? So there's this one little desk this wide, and some seedy guy back there smoking a cigarette, and I say to him, "Hey, is it really a time and a half after midnight?" He looks at me and he doesn't even say anything. He just kind of goes, so, "Thank you for my key." And I go up there, and I'm nervous now because this is Rush Presbyterian, which was somewhat prestigious.
Yeah.
And I'm in a battle zone.
Yeah.
And I can still hear gunshots. And when I'm in my room, I hear screaming and run up and down the hallways. This after midnight. And so I pick up the newspaper just to read something. And the first thing I see is Rush Presbyterian medical student raped and killed and left on a railroad track. So I actually went to that interview, but I was already thinking, I don't think I'm going here. And then, in Dartmouth, by the way, it was this much snow and cold as crap. Massachusetts, same thing, only not pretty and dirty and skanky. At least Dartmouth was pretty.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember if I went to Charleston first, but Charleston, I remember, gosh, it was like 70 and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing there is that was one where they sat us down in this room. They had 6 or so of us, maybe. They at the end of our, walking around and talking whatever, they sat us down and interviewed us as a group, and basically pointed at each person and said, "Why should you take you over the rest of these people here?" I thought that was kind of, and some people got pretty, malicious.
Yeah.
But I just basically said, well, I'm sure we're all qualified and would do well, but here's what I have to offer. I just said that. But then I went to Vanderbilt, and I kind of liked Vanderbilt for whatever reason. I liked the town. I liked some of the guys I met there. But then I flew down to Atlanta, and this is back when they were probably building 85 to 85. Everything was torn up, I remember, and it was again dark. The highlight was that I was scheduled to get like a Ford Fiesta, and they didn't have one, so they gave me a Mustang 5.0. So I was just whipping down the highway.
Classic Atlanta driving.
I can't remember how that went. It was daylight where I just remember seeing a lot of those tall pines that I wasn't used to, because out in Oregon it's big.
Yeah.
Firs. I just thought those were interesting. The only time I saw those were out in western Oregon, where it's kind of deserty. But here it was all lush and green. That stuck out in my mind. But I go to dang Augusta, and I'm in some seedy hotel again. That's all I could afford. And I get up in the morning. And by now I'm tired. I've been to a bunch of places. And I get up, and it's 5 million degrees by then, and it's humid. And I'm looking around, and it just looks it just looked seedy, hot, and crappy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just turned around and went back to bed. I didn't even call him. I just didn't show up. Just didn't go. Got on the 5.0 and headed back to Atlanta. Got on the, but then somewhere along the way, how did this work? Because we didn't have computers. Somehow I got an offer. Maybe it went home. I guess I called home and they sent a letter. I got an offer. Normally what you do, by the way, you go through all these interviews, then you rank your schools, and then they rank you, and then they match you. They call it the match.
Yeah.
But some schools will go outside of the match if they like you, and they'll just give you an offer. Well, Vanderbilt gave me an offer, and I thought, you know what?
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, I'd already talked to Miami, and that Miami is probably the best school, one of the best schools in the nation at that time. Mm-hmm. I called up that lady and said, so how do I get to the interview? She said, are you driving? I said, well, yeah. You're going to have a rental car by yourself? I said, yeah. She said, oh, well, listen to me carefully. In fact, write this down. From the airport, take such and such and such and such. And when you get to da-da-da, do not get out of your car. Don't stop until you are safely within the gates of the parking structure. Mm. I thought, wow, that doesn't sound good. So guess what? Didn't go. So here's the final funny part of the whole thing is, so I end up, finish residency. I get my first job in Greenville, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. The young guys that are there, that are a few years ahead of me, they're all from Augusta. and none of them are somehow were part of or remember anything about the dude that didn't show up. But that was me.
Yeah. Man. All worked out in the end. And then Greenville, you worked for 30
or so,
33 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how much one. I can talk about a different part of that than just like the career, unless you have any funny stories from over time.
Nothing, all kind of in the similar vein of what we've talked about.
Yeah. I think more interesting question I have now that I'm thinking of. So in the early start of the year, you had a wide gap from physician to nurse.
Yeah.
And then now...
Well, and we had a bunch of nurse anesthetists. Mm-hmm. And even back in the day, I'd come across a nurse anesthetist one time in my life up to that point. Mm-hmm. And it was actually at Vanderbilt. They had one nurse anesthetist. And I remember first being sort of confused by that because, what I've been exposed to all my life, nurses, and then, and not a better or worse thing. I don't mean it that way, but there was a huge gap, a huge difference.
Yeah.
In terms of just what you were taught and what you knew. But these people were actually in the operating rooms without one of us there. I mean, we would start with them, and if they had problems, questions, whatever, mm-hmm. but they would be left alone.
Yeah.
Just like a resident would be. And we had attendings over us. Mm-hmm. So I remember but that was the only time. But when we got to, in Greenville, they had a whole bunch of anesthetists. Mm-hmm. So.
About starting out?
Yeah, and they were very well trained. I mean, and they weren't equivalent then, and they're not equivalent now, but they are probably the most. Well, they're the most highly trained non-physicians that existed at that time, and one of the most highly trained now. I think some of the nurse practitioners and stuff are, especially when they get into like cardiology and some of those things, they're pretty well trained too. Mm-hmm. But they're still not the same because it's kind of like we were talking about with tests. You don't know what you don't know until you
find out
in that position, and you have to learn it that way. Then you find out. Mm-hmm. But you can easily learn things that have patterns, and normal case in anything, probably even surgery, is doable by almost anyone. Really, it's only when the problems show up that's when your training comes in.
When it gets complicated.
Yeah, because human beings don't follow the textbook. The textbook is talking about.
Well, that's like
first what the average normal person would be expected to do, but then mm-hmm. they start teaching you all the weird crap that can happen and how to identify it, figure it out, what to do with it, all that. So you're spending 90% of your time in medical school to address the 10% that's just weird.
Yeah. Well, My general question was going to be, how much do you think the gap has changed between nursing? But it seems like then it hasn't really
I don't think
changed at all.
it's changed a whole lot. I think it's pretty similar.
Hmm.
But I don't mean to denigrate nurse anesthetists at all, because they are very bright people and they do have a difficult training program, but it's not equivalent.
Well, it's not the same amount of...
No, it's just not the same.
Hmm.
Well, and they never have the full level of responsibility, so they don't know what that feels like either. And that, you don't know what that feels like until you just have it. I do remember in residency, Burson Williams, he was in the first year with me and some of my buddies. He was a good guy, but he finally quit and went into pathology. And he said, he was a nice guy and everything, and he was smart and good resident, but he just said, I just couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't get over the fact that someone might die or something I might do might result in someone dying. So he went into pathology because they're already dead.
Solves the problem.
But I think, until you're really in that, until you really, when all the heads are turning, and they will turn to the nurse anesthetist first, but when they don't, they call you in, then everybody, then you don't have anybody to turn around and look at. It's you. That can be described, you can imagine it, but you can't really fully understand it until you just are it, and you never will be it until you are it by going to medical school and whatever.
Well, I think that goes to a lot of different, it goes to really across fields until you're the one called on, and there's not a, let me go get so-and-so from the back. Yeah. It's a different...
Most paraprofessionals think they can do your job as well or maybe better than you can.
Sure.
And why are you here? We don't need you. And
yeah.
Until
everything screws up and you need someone to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think another part that's kind of interesting in those 33 years, eventually, Mom, and I think this provides a fairly good transition into our kind of second half, but one, you can talk about how y'all met to kind of start with, but then we can first go to that and then we can go to the next part.
Okay. Well, I think this is kind of a something that'll be of interest to almost anyone, and that is especially young people looking for their significant other. And I think there's a fairy tale out there. Well, it's not entirely a fairy tale, but it's like there's one person out there for you. The dream person. You just have to search and search and search and find the right person with the right qualities, and you'll match, and because you match, everything will be smooth sailing from that point on. But I am a good example of how that's not really true, because when I finally finished up residency, I was like a horse out of the gate. I was young. I now finally had money. And I liked women, and they seemed to like me. And I went through a lot of different dates and whatever for over a relatively short period of a few years. But I finally hit upon one I stuck with. And this is also about the time where I was still competitive-minded athletically. So I started off doing triathlons, then I started racing bicycles, and I was heavily into bike racing when I met this girl, Vicky Coffey, who was a bike racer. She was a good bike racer. And she was pretty. And she was good-natured. I mean, this is my dream person, right? I don't know why or what, but it just didn't work. I don't know why. So on paper, that should have been it, but it just didn't.
Yeah.
So eventually we broke up, and then I didn't have anybody. And then one of the guys I worked with, Carson Johnson, knew Julie and really thought highly of Julie and knew her and knew me, and he just thought we might get along. So we go out on a date, and I'm still pretty full of myself at this time. Kind of like I'm saying, you have to mature in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to mature after Julie is the one who really, some way, shape, or form, got me to start addressing that dysfunction and molding it to a more healthy spot. Because I was pretty full of myself. But I knew I liked her. I knew I was attracted to her. And I knew she was to me. So that made me hang in there long enough to get over the fact that she's the most unathletic person I've ever met in my life. And I mean, we had so many things that really probably didn't. And she wasn't, big time academic. Mm-hmm. She wasn't particularly artistic, but something about her I just really respected and grew to love her. And so, but we got married, and then, I'm still kind of fooling myself. And I got to thinking, did I make the wrong decision? I'm sure she went through some of the same things. And then one day, finally, she said, well, maybe we should get a treadmill. Maybe I'll just start trying that. So I thought, oh, wow, hey, she's going to try something athletic.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, it was in her room, living room at that time. So I'm sitting there, came home from work, and she watched her go, change, get on the treadmill, turn it on. It's kind of a brisk walk, maybe. She goes 5 minutes, shuts it off, and starts to leave the room. Like she's done. I said, what are you done? Is that it? I said, why'd you quit? She said, I think I started to sweat. But it's funny, though, how that really is the story. I think all those things are peripheral. What we had that kept us together and made us work was our foundation was the same. We believed in the same things that are important for relationships and for how to treat other people and treat one another. And we believed in full 100% commitment, and we believed in communication. So I think if you got those things, you're lucky as crap. And those are the only things that are going to make a relationship work.
Yeah.
That's it. All that other stuff is fluff. I mean, and if you're truly committed, you start growing together. So, file forward a few years, Julie meets Natalie, and Natalie's kind of a jogger. So then Julie starts jogging, and then, she gets pulled into this group of people that go and do runs. And before you know it, she's out doing half marathons. And she's not just doing them just to do them. She's looking at her times and all that.
Yeah. And
I can remember, I don't know how many more years forward when we were at the farm, we had the workout room, but I went out there one time and I just heard that thing flying. Pow, 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 pow. And I went out there and her hair was strung down and sticking and sweat was flopping everywhere. I had to close the door to protect myself. I mean,
yeah.
So I think again, if you share those things I talked about, communication, commitment, and foundational beliefs, you're lucky.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps a marriage together. And all those other things, they'll take care of themselves. What destroys a marriage? I got into the advice part a little bit, but
yeah,
it's a good
keep going.
springboard.
Yeah.
What destroys a marriage is selfishness and neglect.
I think that's interesting. It's obvious. It's hard to have a relationship. It seems obvious. The selfishness is, I think that's the tricky part that we kind of touched on in neglect. They go hand in hand, very much so. But it's difficult. I think it's difficult early on.
It is, because
when how to avoid that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one great answer.
There is an answer, though. Of those three, it's the communication.
Yeah.
That gets you through that. Because if you foundationally have the same beliefs and the commitments there, then the communication will help you smooth out those edges and keep the person who's in a really, time involved struggle to advance their career or whatever in that moment. They'll be encouraged to do what they can and to know that they do at some point have to get this under control. And it's not going to happen right now because you can't. But you can do little things that you might not have normally done.
Yeah.
Just little things like send a text and say, I'm thinking about you, love you. Even that, do it daily.
Yeah.
Just little things here and there, and them doing the same. And know, though, that your goal is to get to a spot where it's not like this. Or not as much like this. But I think that's what keeps it in the game. So I think communication is the salve for those two problems.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, So to flip it on to kind of your perspective of when you're going through the first part of y'all's relationship and marriage eventually, it's a very time consuming profession that you're in. Of that you were working maybe not 24/7, but I mean you're on call, you're picking up shifts, you're doing a lot of. So then how'd you
usually be up 28 hours straight.
Yeah.
And working the entire time, yeah.
So, I mean, I imagine what kind of led to finding a balance or maybe working through, maybe not finding a balance, but how getting through it? What was...
A lot of communication.
A lot. Well, did that come off naturally, just like off the beginning, or did it just kind of evolve over time?
Well, I had to learn the communication, and that's where I give Julie credit, because she knew the importance of it, and she knew that the only things we were lacking was communication and my part. But I figured it out too, and I had to start adjusting myself because, the classic line, you knew what I was when you married me. You knew I did these things.
Yeah.
And expecting that be drop the mic and it's your own fault. Well, you're not an individual anymore. You're married.
Yeah.
So it is going to change. You do have to change. Well, I wasn't ready to accept that in the beginning, but I slowly started to do that. And, I just, it's years, of, and sometimes you relearn these things, it's just.
Well, I think to kind of.
Communication is the thing, though, that keeps it going.
I'd say to add to that consistency, I think it takes longer than. It's not simply communicate for, a month or for a week straight or for, but it's a constant. You have to be consistent at it, truly, of trying to.
Even when it's not convenient or you don't feel like it or whatever,
Yeah, I think the big part there is the consistency and communication probably take it a far ways.
But it's gotten easier because when we were first married, we didn't have texting. I could be thinking about her and she didn't even know I'm thinking about her. But I was too stupid to come home and say, hey, I was thinking about you today. I should have, but I didn't. But I finally got to the point where, I don't know when it happened, but she lived by example. She put little notes in my briefcase, and I'd be rushing through there, whatever, and I'd find this little note. Oh, I love you. I love that you did da-da-da-da-da. You're just nice little things. And then, so I started trying to be suave with these poems here and there. I leave her some, but she was far better at it, more consistent than I was. But, man, when texting got around, I enjoyed sending her little notes. I still do.
Yeah.
But I'll go through periods where I kind of slack off for who knows whatever reason, and then I remind myself again, and because I like it when she does it for me, and she likes it when I do it for her. And those little things are really, really, they're little, but they're hugely important. Yeah. People want to know that they're cared for.
Loved and appreciated.
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway here is that a relationship is not a perfect, necessarily pieced together puzzle, but it is something that you have to. I was kind of thinking more of it as like sculpting, of that you're constantly working to make a vase or whatever, and you're going to have to kind of smooth some edges, and the edge might bump out or something. You got to go back, and you got to make sure you need a strong base to start with.
Because you're two individuals, you are changing as individuals with time. Your brain is changing with time. My brain has changed a bunch.
Yeah.
My memory is different now and all kinds of stuff. But then life's changing around you, like your job, the town, the city.
Yeah.
Then you have kids. Whoa, buckle up. Then it's really changes. And that's not even I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just, a whole lot more change.
Well, change often gets wrapped as a bad word of that. It's different. It's changed. But it is a good, change can be good. And it's just, change is different. It's not going to be the same. Your world is not the same as kids or responsibility, whatever it is. It's no longer, it takes away some of your independence, but you have now Mm-hmm. Either, a kid to invest in that, later on is probably worth the time, but right now it's pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And it's,
there's absolutely. And well, change is a complicated thing, but suppose someone said, I just need a simple answer. Is change good or bad? What would you say?
I would say it's probably good.
I would too.
I would say if you don't have any change, life would be really boring.
Absolutely.
I think to view any change is, well, yeah. I mean, I just don't think. I think change can be not what you want necessarily at the time, or maybe not what you see as easy. But it is something that can evolve. It's kind of like a door opening, and you don't know what's behind it necessarily. Of you're opening a door to kind of blackness and stepping through, and
it's exciting.
It's exciting and nerve wracking all at the same time.
Sometimes it's bad, but that's why it's exciting.
Sometimes you're fearful of what's and sometimes it's easier to just cower and not open the door. But then it's kind of like, are you willing to live with that decision? Are you?
I think it's a mindset and a decision. And what I used to always tell myself is that I can be happy anywhere. I do have a preference of where I want to be and where I want to live and the type of place that is, but I can be happy anywhere. I could be happy. And my famous saying was Fargo, North Dakota, just because I associated Fargo with being nowhere, cold, snowy, just to me it was like one of the most unpleasant places to ever live. And then one of my fellow interns was from North Dakota, and he was a good dude. But I always said that, and I maybe that leads into the point of even bringing this up and saying this, is that I think a lot of how we see anything is based on our choice of how we want to see it, because good and well that two people looking at the exact same thing can have completely opposite interpretations and responses to it.
Yeah.
And why not just choose the good?
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to be stronger for this. This will, create this opportunity, whatever. But I truly do think a person can be and should be content no matter what they're in. I mean, there are limits. I mean, if you're strung up in chains in a prison or something, I mean, that's different.
Different talk, but when you're out in the world, there should be some form of...
Yeah, if you can't find some way to find a ray of light, then you're going to have a lot of problems for your entire life.
Yeah, might need to do some self-reflection and some looking inward to find what's...
Yeah. Well, this plays into marriage. I feel it's a good time to bring it up, because I wrote down a few notes, and one of them were things about marriage advice. And one of those things I wrote in there was, will I have a happy marriage? You ask yourself. My answer was no.
With an exclamation mark.
Right. And the point was, happiness is not sustainable for anybody. Mm-hmm. And if it was, happiness would be boring anyway. I mean, boring.
Well, yeah, if your only measure was happiness, it would never...
It was the same all the time.
Yeah.
But that is an uplifted, elated state. Mm-hmm. What is achievable and is good is contentment. Yeah. And contentment comes from all these things we've talked about. That contentment is solid. It's not glamorous, but it is good. And you're fortunate to have it. Yeah. Because not everyone does, and a lot of people don't have it because they're expecting happiness. And if they don't have happiness all the time, they're unhappy. Yeah. And they think something's wrong. Hollywood's like that, I think. Yeah. But then you have something to compare happiness to. Right. Your contentment will be sustainable and sprinkled with lots of episodes of happiness that give you memories and fondness. And I mean... Well,
there's something too.
They're separate things.
I mean, I think it's the point, though, of, like, if you don't have if you have no bar of suffering versus, maybe not so, down bad times and elated happy times, you wouldn't have any scale. That would be
right. You got to have something to compare it to.
But the second thing is, sometimes in those finding joy in the bad times of, this is a crappy situation, and there's being able to relate somehow to find some way to laugh, something to, some sort of joy from that is a skill. Like, I mean, it's part of it, because it's like it's a suffering. I just think, going back to relationships, of finding something down the road of, maybe this isn't funny right now. You know?
Yeah.
Having those parts to reflect on.
Well, think about it. No one can pick you up. Someone might be able to help you pick you up, but in the end, only you can pick you up.
Yeah.
So yeah, take the help, and it's nice to have help, but in the end, you got to know that I kind of have to do this, you know, and there's no reason why I can't. There's no reason why I shouldn't. You can feel blue and depressed and unhappy and all kinds of things, but just always think of it as temporary. I'm going to find my way out of it, and you will.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a pretty good way of viewing it. And
then you're going to have a great thing to compare happiness to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can just say an ice cream cone. That seems like, wow, this is way better than that. Yeah. This is amazing.
I think kind of the idea that we were talking about with change, parenting is a clear changing aspect.
Mm-hmm.
With that, you've done it now for 24,
25,
almost 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of been, I think, just what would be the key points of things that general advice that you would kind of give?
Well, I think one would be, read, talk to people you trust, take all of that advice, and realize that no one thing you've read is
going to work.
But what does work, I think, to cut through all that noise is just a few simple things. Consistency, meaning that it really means kind of two things. One is, you as parents, for the sake of your children, cannot correct one another about the parenting. You can't correct Keely's parenting in front of your kids, because your kids need to feel there's consistency and know that you guys are a unified front. Now, suppose you do disagree with something she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose you're forced into saying something, just say, well, I tell you what, let's just talk about it later, whatever. Or just keep your mouth shut, and then when your kids leave, you say, pull her aside and just say, I feel we need to talk about this. Here's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And then come to an agreement on how you're going to approach it in the future, and then be consistent about that. So consistency is good.
I think that's important, though, in all facets of social.
Yeah.
I think it's, if you're going to correct, I don't think public settings ever, whether it's kids or...
I agree.
I think that's always united front represented.
I was that way as a attending and as a supervisor of CRNAs. I never called them out in front of the surgeon or anyone else. I would quietly pull them aside and we'd discuss it in a nice, quiet, peaceful way, whatever. Mm-hmm. But just the same, got the point across. Yeah. But well, I'll move on to my second piece before I lose my train of thought, and that is, as an individual parent. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in the heat of the situation, anger, frustration, you'll say something to your child. Okay, that's it. You're doing da 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 da.
Yeah.
And as the words are coming out of your mouth, you realize that this is way too harsh. I was angry.
Yeah.
I think your best course of action, if it's possible, is to follow through with what you said in some way, shape, or form. Try to figure out a way to tone it down, maybe, but you've got, it's part of that consistency thing. Your children need to know that what you say is what you say. If they get the idea that, well, maybe it will be or maybe it won't, it's not good for you and it's not good for them. So you're going to you'll feel bad about it. You just know that in the future, I'm going to try to get a better control of my emotions and kind of prepare yourself that when this happens again, because it probably will, here's how I'm going to respond. But and you're going to be learning. I mean, you're, as a parent, you don't beat yourself up. You learn as you go. You're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to follow through. If you said it, find a way. 90% of the way you can find a way to still follow through. Even if you modify it a little, you're still following through. To just flat out and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was out of my head. I'm not going to do that. If you do that too often, there are going to be a few times where you just have to do that, maybe. But that should be few and far between.
Very rare.
Everything else, you just got to find a way to follow through, no matter how much you hate it.
Yeah.
You got to follow through.
Well, it seems like otherwise it'd give like kind of an inconsistency to what's
and that's unsettling for kids.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it would be. It actually is. As much as they act like they don't like having rules in the family, this is how the Mathis family does this. I don't care if the Jones do this. In the Mathis family, we do it this way, and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how we do it.
Yeah.
But being consistent like that, that's good. I think most of your kids that have problems in school that act out all the time are the ones that don't have that. They don't know which ends up. They don't know where they're trying to find the limit. That's why they're acting that way, because that's the only way they find a limit is when a teacher or somebody finally drops the bar. But then unfortunately, then they go home and none of that's backed up. And I just think that's totally
having a
disruptive for a kid to not have consistency
and kind of enforcement of what's. It sets a clear.
Just be true to your word, basically. Yeah. No matter how much you regret what you said, you got to find a way to make it look like anyway that you followed through. You didn't back down.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find ways to temper what you said, but still do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. But,
well, yeah, certainly. I mean, like they're 5, and hopefully can find a way.
Well, it'll kind of keep on going
all the way up,
all the way through. But I think you get better as a parent as you.
Well, certainly. Hopefully, it keeps progressing as.
You'll make a few screw-ups, but I think the worst thing to do is to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong," so they don't know. The next time they say something, well, if I wait long enough, he feel bad and back down or whatever. You got to stick to it.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say. Is one thing to learn.
Be mindful of what you're.
And remember, you can always up the ante, but it's real hard to back down the ante. So
yeah, I think with that though, a lot of it would be having a consistent. I think that goes to having a consistent front of what are you enforcing, and what's kind of the repercussion for going outside.
And there have to be repercussions, and they have to happen. And you got to make it clear every single time. Have a brief discussion and just say, "Well, how did you get yourself into this situation?" They're going to want to say, "You're mean. You did this to me." Say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I didn't do it. I didn't do a thing to you. You knew."
Yeah.
What the rules are, and you chose to break them. This is on you, and let's figure out how this won't happen in the future. Whatever. And then and I guess another. Are we on parenting now?
Yeah.
You want me to keep going?
Keep going. It's flowing. Yeah.
I don't have a lot more little rules, but setting boundaries is important. I think that just already got covered.
Yeah.
And why you want to do that. Gosh, I just lost it. I just had it and I lost it. What am I going to say there? I just lost what I was going to say.
Patience, take responsibility.
Let's stop on patience. That's a good one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We have this problem because you read all these books, you figure out a game plan, then you execute the game plan, and you do it for day after day, and nothing's changing. You're going, "Oh my God, I need to read more." No, you don't need to read more.
Yeah.
All you need to do is do the other things. Be consistent. Stick to it. And just be patient and wait. It takes sometimes a week or more.
I'll say probably more.
And then a lot of times I remember you're now on to another problem, and you just finally dawns on you, that other problem went away, and I don't even know how. It's not there anymore. And you had been just waiting, when is this going to change? And then, by God,
it just happened.
It's just gone.
Yeah.
So, just patience.
I think patience goes a lot into consistency of happening. Well, I think the patience is like...
Just don't worry yourselves mostly, I guess. Patience. Don't worry that it's not working. If you're consistent, do those other things, it's going to work.
It takes...
It's going to be fine.
For like a normal, I think adult human, it takes about 3 months to develop a habit. Yeah. And so, I mean, you can't really explain that long term to a child, but if you're trying to if you're not consistently enforcing something over a significant time frame, I don't know if it's shortened or longer I think it'd be probably shortened to learn a habit as a kid, but let's say the same, think about trying to go change any of your own personal habits. You're going to get, I'd be like, well, maybe I shouldn't be so frustrated.
Yeah, it's easy to say these things, but when you're in the trenches, you're going to know. To say, I remember now, we talked about this.
Yeah.
You're going to be tempted to think you're screwing up, you're bad parents, you're not doing things right, it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? You just stick with that consistency, it's going to be fine. It will work. And some things get corrected sooner than others, and each kid's different, but just stick to it.
Yeah.
So, and really, though, enforce that responsibility thing. Not in a harsh way, but just say, hey, one, if they want to say, well, my teacher's a bad teacher, or that test was unfair. Wasn't their fault. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's kind of life. You're going to have some good teachers, some bad teachers, good coaches, bad coaches. You're going to have tests that are hard, some that are not, some that seem unfair, some that are not.
Yeah.
But you know what? You don't have control over that. What do you have control
over? Well, yourself.
Being prepared. What are you going to, now that you know this happened, and you've got this full year with this teacher, let's figure out together how you're going to adapt.
Yeah.
And excel under these circumstances.
Yeah.
But don't blame others. Some of those things might be true, but what you have control over is you.
Well, I think
you can overcome these things by.
I think preaching to them the fact that they can. I feel like academics is just like a general channel of a lot of difficulties come from being in a school.
Yeah.
And I think a lot. The teacher aspect, I think. Trying to frame things as like a growth opportunity is important early on, because otherwise it kind of, I think, to me it's almost like you can get stuck into, this is my capability and this is all I can do, versus like this is my kind of starting point almost of, it takes time and effort to become smarter or grow in whatever field it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's often easy to be more kind of like, I think grades is just an interesting thing. Like the fact of, you can say, if you're praising them for getting a high score and never praising any of the work they did, it falls into kind of the trap of like, kind of the dysfunction area of, well, I just need the score. Like nothing else matters but the score, versus that maybe I don't need to memorize this, but actually understand it. And I think that can compound until you get, 20 something, and then you finally realize maybe I should start trying to understand what's going on.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that.
I think that's a consistent area to always praise as an opportunity for growth and stuff. But it's hard. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a challenging, I think, trying to come up with a united front on how you want to go about praise, because too much praise seems like a slippery slope.
Yeah, I listened to Chris's. I am not a participation award person.
No.
You guys did not. Well, your mom probably did, but I didn't.
No. And I think that's a very important lesson, but it's finding the right praise almost is my kind of view. So I think no praise that's not helpful.
And spreading it around too.
Yeah. I think with that kind of roundness of a.
Yeah, I think that falls into one of those other things I wrote on down there about unconditional love, because I think I fell into this trap naturally if I didn't check myself, because especially since I was so performance oriented myself and competitive and all that when I saw you kids, I thought I was showing my love and appreciation for you guys when you did great things. Then I was very exuberant about it, and that was good, but I wasn't exuberant about anything else, and I didn't think about it in the moment.
Yeah.
That kind of is really pigeonholing your kids into trying to get your love by performing. And that's not what I intended at all, but I think that message probably came from me, especially early on, because I just didn't put it all together. I thought I was doing great. Oh, wow, you made the team, you scored great. I did it with Maddie a lot, and because I thought, well, she's a girl, and women even now probably are still a little bit sort of ostracized in a way from men in terms of equality and intellect and drive and performance. So I was overdoing it with her, thinking I was doing good for her. But then, you know, you create this kid that she thinks that's so important that she's letting you down.
Yeah.
If she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't intend for that to happen, but I think it probably did. But anyway, it falls into this. You don't realize sometimes. Well, that maybe that's, I didn't write this down, but maybe that's something. When it's all said and done,
mm-hmm.
you can't punish yourself as a parent because you made mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes, no matter how hard you tried. And we tried hard not to. But I know we have, and I know we did. But you know, we're sorry, and we'll try to help you when we can to fix what we broke. But even my parents, same way. They really were trying to be good parents, but shoot, they flipped a switch in me that I suffered with forever. Probably still do a little bit about this inferiority thingy. I'm much more comfortable with it now. It's very minimal, but it was huge for a large part of my life, and it was probably triggered by them, to be honest. But they didn't mean to.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another giant point of this is no parent sets out to be the crappiest parent of the year award. I mean, well, and no one's going into it with the mindset.
To be fair, though, there are parents out there that could give a crap.
There's some that just don't.
Their own lives are so much more important. Their kids, they're on their own. Okay, you should feel bad. But for people that are really trying hard and you really have read.
Well, I think anyone, I mean, you're giving it your best. I mean, you're not.
Give yourself a break later. You tried. And learn from it, too. And try to pass some knowledge on to your kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like a thing. I mean, it's just never a done process.
But I think that was one of my personal bigger mistakes, I think, is unknowingly, I bet both of you kids probably got the impression, at least for some period of your growing up, that it was important for you to perform for me, or I was going to be disappointed. And I in no way intended that, but I bet it came across at least to some degree. Because you only got praise when you performed. But I didn't mean that. Well, I'm sure I gave you praise outside of that, but you really got praise for things like that. So
yeah,
that was probably a mistake, but I didn't intend it. But I could see it. You know what I mean? I could see it. I mean, no harm. Well, I'm not looking for
shit sailed.
Okay.
I mean,
well, I'm not looking for you to say, "Oh, that's okay." That's not why I'm bringing it up. But I think it's important because I think lots of people, especially you're fairly competitive. I think lots of us that are like that could fall into that trap pretty easily. I did.
Yeah.
And you don't mean to, but I think you could. If you just think about it, you won't fall into it. That's all. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's something to it's just something that you have to be conscious of. Really?
Well, I have one last piece of parenting advice before I forget it.
Yeah.
And that is, within reason, let your kids fail.
Yeah.
Those are probably the most important and best learned lessons you'll ever have. And it can start at an early age, like when you have rules and boundaries and things, and your kids don't follow them. And this is probably more, related to school. And grades, when you kids didn't do your homework, or so you say, "Hey, did you get that done?" And you said, "No." Are you going to do it? And you said, "Yes." I'm done. I told you. You heard. You agreed.
Yeah.
Your first few times where you then didn't do it, and you brought home a bad grade, and you were devastated and or wanted to then do these things where you're blaming the teacher, said, "Hey."
Yeah.
We probably both of us said, "Well, we didn't see you study. What'd you expect? I mean, isn't this really more kind of your problem, not their problem? And how did it make you feel?
Yeah.
And do you want to feel like that again or not?" And you say no, then we have a discussion. Well, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then we'd say, well, we'll help you. But you're doing the work, but we'll help you. So it's not like you're on your own.
Yeah.
But you're accepting responsibility and taking responsibility. So this was happening, I don't know, probably at least first grade, if not before, in little doses.
Yeah.
Little failures and little doses in small, inconsequential ways, done over and over and over, add up to something really huge. And this bleeds then into the high school years, which are the most challenged and the most scary and dangerous, because now you're almost adults. You're adult sized. You can drive. You can drink.
Mm-hmm.
You can do you can make babies. I mean, all kinds of things can happen.
Yeah.
And so you don't. I mean, there are limits. Like the worst thing you can do is end up with an unwanted pregnancy, which is not good for either one,
mm-hmm.
or some bodily harm of yourself or someone else when you're drunk or something. So you have these discussions over and over, but within reason, I think you need to. I mean, I would rather some of that happened within reason in our home, where we have a chance to help. You clean up your mess a bit and
mm-hmm.
learn from it, whatever, rather than you're not staying out past 10. You never any alcohol at our house or anywhere else. I'm going to call ahead and find out with those parents if there's going to be alcohol. If I find there's alcohol, you never go back. Da 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 da. Okay, off you go to college. Good luck. And then that person has a big car wreck and hurts themselves or hurts somebody else or both.
Yeah.
Because they were drunk and who knows what.
Well, that's like
little doses add up better than one big massive dose that is life changing in a bad way.
Yeah, I think it's hard to set. The boundaries is a hard. I don't know if boundaries or rules would be the right, but having the strict guidelines.
Enforcement, I think, is the issue here.
Certainly, I think you need. I'm not saying you shouldn't have.
Don't want to overly enforce, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You gotta give it. You gotta at some point start giving a little bit of rope, just a little bit of rope, not all the rope.
Well, otherwise you're just gonna hate yourself once you get.
Yeah, you're almost looking forward to the time when they make their first screw up drinking or something, because now you know what we've been trying to convey. You know now,
mm-hmm.
and because now you have no excuse anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think a lot of it's also just, even if you don't have those experiences of where you're out on your own, and you don't have it's on me to figure out situation, you're going to go to eventually college or on your own, whatever, it's a job and you're living by yourself, whatever path you take, there's going to be some point in time where it transitions from a gate to now if you just take that gate and there's the world. It's going to be it makes it for the
world's out there waiting for you. You're either ready for it or you're not. I think part of this is it begins with, before you start letting the rope out, you have to have discussions and make sure it's very clear, and it's a two-way discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you preaching to your kid. It's together talking about, you just got to lay it out there at some point. Pregnancy and drinking. Those are the two biggies that will really destroy a person, possibly in high school or afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have to talk about those and try to present it in different ways of an illustration that will really click. And you don't know what's going to click. So you do have to say it probably in several different occasions in several different ways until it just sticks a little bit. And we try to do it with you especially. Think if you just got someone pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen? There's three people involved. There's the kid, there's the girl, and there's you.
Yeah.
And if it's unwanted, it's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the brass tacks of this whole thing. You're responsible. I don't care if you don't want to be responsible. You are morally responsible for that kid financially and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't step up morally or financially, you're going to punish yourself for the rest of your life. Yet, if you do, you're going to punish yourself for the rest of your life. So, potentially, but just think about that. So then you dole out the condoms. Just say, hey, do I want you to have sex? And we made it clear, I don't know if you remember all this, we said, this isn't saying go out and have sex, but this is saying if you're going to be stupid enough to go out and have sex, don't be stupid. It's like the worst thing would happen. So, and I don't know what your memory was of all this, but that's kind of in a nutshell our intention, and we did it for both you and Maddie. And then drinking, tried to nail home that thing about, I think a lot of times you feel invincible about yourself, and that if you got in a wreck, you'd survive somehow, whatever. Well, what if you killed somebody?
Mm. Yeah.
A family.
Yeah.
What if you ran over somebody because you're just driving along, You just doze just for a second.
Yeah.
Just a second. Because you're drunk. And you swerve and you pick off some guy who shouldn't have been there. Maybe it's a homeless person. But you hit him and kill him.
Yeah.
You know, these are the discussions you have in high school. Not when they're little. I mean, God, they need counseling.
Oh.
But in high school, you're mature enough.
There's a certain
to think of these things before you do something really stupid. Now, you can still be wild and impulsive, but you got a condom. And the part of the drinking thing was, listen, just don't take a chance. There's no questions asked. Just call us.
Yeah.
We have cell phones now. I mean, just call us. Nobody has to know.
Yeah.
You could walk around the corner so no one saw you getting picked up by your parents. But
other part of it
don't drive and get yourself in trouble.
The other interesting, like, difference-ish, I guess, would be.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah,
all the stuff I just said is not what I think is right for everybody. I'm no way, shape, or form of presenting this as the way of parenting should occur. I'm just saying this is what we did and this is why.
Yeah.
Every parent has to make these choices for themselves.
Well, yeah, I hope that's a given. I hope no one's listening.
I don't think I'm authority. It's just this is how we did it and this is why. This is right or wrong.
This is only to share perspective. There's no just.
I'm sure if anybody parents listen to this, they're probably gonna have their own opinions, and I'm fine with that. And,
I would hope so. I hope no one would just flat out say, "Yep, that's the best way to do it."
Devil's advice.
Yeah. Or that's just all completely worse. I mean,
well, even I would say the ideal thing is no sex, no drinking until you're old enough.
Yeah.
But I know good and well that just doesn't often. I mean,
they're just kind of stupid.
I'd have to say more often than not that does not happen.
Yeah.
So the next thing is don't be stupid if you're gonna be stupid, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't have unprotected sex and don't drive when you're wasted. That's stupid.
I think the interesting part that y'all had and that we experienced that I've talked about a few times now, but the rise of social media and that happening at the same time. And my first question, because I've kind of formed my own opinion on this. If you would go back, would you kind of take that away or limit that more severely, or would you?
Well, I said you're right. We had tons of angst.
Knowing this is kind of more 2020 now. The fact of that, you
look at hindsight.
Can kind of look hindsight more now.
No,
not that you're on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter all the time, but just more of the fact of now we know what we know.
Yeah. No. I think if you can the longer you can hold out on allowing your child to have a phone and be unsupervised on the internet, the better, probably.
Yeah.
But there is some point where
it's kind of like
the real world's out there, and you're going to have to get eased into it somehow. I don't know what the age is, but I think part of it is knowing your kids. I mean, you've been with them for forever. You kind of know them a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be a combination of just when it is kind of the right time, combined with your child. I think I can see kids that maybe got introduced to it too early and too unsupervised too early and all that. And
I think all of it was good. Unsupervised and too early for a lot of us. I think
probably. Well, yeah, that's a good point. What do you think looking back?
Looking back, I think it was probably the worst. It was one of the worst things to happen. I think
that's too bad because but I tell you, your kids, all the other kids have phones and they're all talking to one another and you're left out. And then you get to a point where you have practices and this, that, and the other thing, and it's handy to be able to communicate.
I don't think phones are an issue. I don't think that's a direct issue. There's nothing wrong with like a flip phone or I don't think a phone's a problem. I think it's more the fact that when you have a mix of, we had Snapchat is the clear one that I can never think of anything positive, which is you can send. It's a disappearing message. I don't know how much, but so
turns out they aren't necessarily disappearing. You can take a screenshot.
Correct.
You can do this, that, and the other thing.
But when you're
young and stupid, and
Well, when
you didn't know.
But yeah, you just flat out, one, don't understand the world, and two, you're, let's see, I don't know, 13. I don't know. I think I was in 7th grade. I don't know what that would. I think I'd be around then. But I was in 7th
Now
grade.
remember, this is a public forum, so don't say anything you don't want.
Well, it's not.
How about on a public forum? We can talk about this later.
It's not like a bad, but it's just like I've seen many bad things from it. But when you give it to at that, so you kind of get this feeling that you know what's going on, and you have this,
which you develop about the age 13.
Yeah, you have this imaginary grasp on what's happening,
the entire world, and your parents and everything else.
And so then you go into high school, and it created I think it just created a lot of problems for people that you otherwise wouldn't have on, if you had
I remember
rotary phone, or if you had
absolutely.
And that's why, to me,
a written,
this is a very
record now.
Very long-winded way to get to my point, but I think it's best to now start. My idea would be to start them on a flip, maybe not a flip phone, but a phone you can text on and a phone you can call. Just a phone. Classic. But I think at some point you have to cross the bridge, and I think in high school you do just have to kind of gradually. I think time limits now are also a good thing that you can put on them. Of you can put parental guidelines of you can be on Instagram for 30 minutes.
Yeah, we did some of that, but all that technology about how you can have parental control was evolving about that.
Well, that's the same thing. That was
We didn't have as much as you have now.
Right.
You have more ways to get in trouble now.
But you also had less ways of like figuring out how to get around it, or how.
Yeah.
You know, like you didn't quite like. From y'all's perspective, it was brand new, of just an invention, anyways.
Yeah.
But now, kind of, it's. I mean, we just all have used it so much, and have seen it, and to me, it just seems like around the early high school, you have to introduce it, but you can't really take the. I think if you just gave it to them and took the reins off, it's not good for anyone. I think that's statistically it's shown.
I think you're right.
It's shown in girls specifically to be not a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever. I think this is the same thing. There's no perfect answer to this.
No,
but
not.
To me, you have to gradually start with having a phone and texting, talking to people, because you need to be able to talk. You need to be able to talk in this day and age. You can't just cut them off from the world and say you got to write by mail. But the whole aspect of being able to share pictures, and not only being able to share but view other people's lives in the best moments of their lives, and why does this person flying on a private jet, or like
why isn't my life as good as that one?
I think that just sets up for not a great
perspective. You're tempted to set a bar that's so high you can never achieve it, and then you're unhappy.
And then you're just unhappy. And that's why I think you got to gradually taper and kind of have conversations that I don't think were really thought of. With like, this is mostly kind of fake. This is mostly shot to make it look, to get views, to get likes. And it's, I just think there's a lot of, it's almost like having the talk.
This is the most complex subject we've talked about today.
Yeah.
You know what the salve is here?
Huh.
Communication again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it fixes it or takes away the problems, but I think that was we thought all this, everything we're saying right now, we thought as parents with you guys when the topic of a phone came up. And we did hold off longer than many parents, but there were other parents that held off longer than us. But what we started with was talking about it. Again, kind of like we were talking earlier about sex and alcohol and that stuff. Why do you want a phone?
Yeah.
Why do you need a phone? And then what do you think about, this, and we talked about some of these problems we're talking about with you kids. You may not remember.
Yeah.
But we finally agreed to let you have a phone, and finally agreed to let you have video games. But we put limits on the video games. The phone, I think we had you leave your phones with us at night for a long time. but continue the discussions about these things. But then Juliana on her own had discussions that fell into kind of the same category of someday you're going to be out there in the real world with a phone, and you're either going to be exposed to that later when you get out of the house and you're on your own, or it's going to happen while we're here with you.
Yeah.
And we just tried to make sure that the channels were open, that you knew what the dangers were as best we could describe them. I don't remember how savvy we were back then, but we are savvier than you might think. And I guess that's just the conglomeration of that is what's going to tell you what to do and when.
Yeah.
Now, I did notice that I saw today a guy's developing this thing. It's probably been around for a while now, but they were talking about it on Good Morning America about this guy that developed Caboodle. I don't know if you've ever heard of Caboodle. Well, Caboodle is
funny name.
It's a platform that you can put on your kids' devices, computer, laptop, and phone, that you control their online experience of what they can be exposed to. And you can choose based on your parenting style. And your beliefs and everything else. And you can leave things available to them, at least enough to keep them occupied. And then I think we felt uncomfortable about the tracking things. We weren't sure.
I think tracking is interesting.
Does that suggest that we don't have any faith in you and respect in you? And again, no matter how much we try to track you, and you did. Find ways. We know you did. You leave your phone with a friend, and then you go somewhere. I mean, just stuff like there's so many things you could do.
Yeah.
But the communication to talk about what all those. Basically, the problem is two things: one, getting yourself in trouble in all those ways we talked about, and the second is being exposed to malicious people in texts. And can you handle that? Yeah. You can't have one without the other. If you want the freedom to go on the internet, then you better buckle up and be ready, because and then just remember, you got to treat it like it's permanent. You can erase it, you can delete it, you can do all these things, but you've got to treat it like whatever I'm putting out there, just treat it like it's permanent, because something out there is going to be permanent, and it's going to come back and bite you. So I think we had these discussions with you, and we just had to kind of at some point, especially in high school, leave it up to you.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part of that. Everything you do on there is pretty much there. I mean, it's just like, and I think that's a bad thing for, kids, really. I mean, think about all the stupid things you do, and then imagine that,
being recorded.
85% of them are just recorded something. And it's just that's
I felt bad for you guys.
It's not helpful in a...
No. And it's like living in a jail.
But then it's also you don't understand that. You have no idea that it's,
you're impulsive and stuff. And so you think about it after. You don't think about it before. But
the location thing, though, I think it's hard, because you don't really appreciate it until later on of all right, well, if my car broke down, it would probably be helpful if someone could find where I'm at.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just seems... I don't know. It seems kind of overbearing to you're not really thinking of a greater. You're just I want to go do whatever I want to do. You're not thinking about, well, if I did need help, it might be useful to know where I'm at.
Right. Absolutely. I think these. What's going to help though is, again, going way back to that consistency, boundaries, and responsibility, because you kids at an early age loved having responsibility and got to where you were extremely responsible. I was really sort of depressed, saddened, and almost, what's the word? I don't know, that you wouldn't let me help you with your homework. You didn't need help. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that all started way, way back. And I heard on NPR, we used to have the horses in the stalls, and we'd muck them out every night. I'd be down there, I'd turn on NPR when mucking stalls, and I listened, when you kids were little, I listened to this study that followed kids who were raised with anyone other than their parents, either one or both parents. they compared those kids and I forget what all their criteria were, but basically what their problems were is they were then studied throughout this whole thing. But it was a study that went on for like 20 years versus those that were raised by one parent or both parents. And they found that during that first 3 to 5 years of life, it was extremely crucial that your parents were present and involved. And a grandmother or whatever else was not, it was better than nothing, but it was not as good as kids flourish best later if they know their parents are there for them when they're little and that you're involved all the way through. But then you're outside of the 3 to 5 years, well, it is important during that time. But then I think from that point on, consistency and all those other things, just carrying them through. By the time your kids get to high school, yeah, they're going to make mistakes, but they will not typically, they won't make the mistakes they would have made had you not done all that. So all this effort and all this time you're putting in here that sometimes it seems like it's getting you no result, it feels like it is. And it's coming through in high school. That's what's going to help a big portion with all these things we just talked about with technology and drinking and sex and all that stuff. You'll have a degree, a sense of responsibility, just enough, hopefully, that you won't take that one tick further. Unprotected sex, drink to the point where you can hardly walk and get in a car and drive. I think that's the only hope anyway. It's the only hope.
Well,
or you just lock them up and then send them off to college and good luck.
Yeah.
And I think that's worse, personally.
Yeah. Well, I think with all of this, I think the thing that we can end it on, and I think universally agree on, is communication and consistency.
Yeah.
I think we can end on that note.
Communication, consistency, and boundaries. I guess it's kind of a different thing, but they all play with one another.
Yeah. Cool.
Fourth thing, responsibility. Teach responsibility. I think that was the fourth. And I'm stopping there. They're all slightly different, but they're all important. Helping your kids learn to take responsibility for what has happened to them when they have a part in it. Like the school thing where, well, I got a bad grade. That teacher's bad. Really? I didn't see you study at all this entire week. And you said you were. What do you think would have happened if he'd actually studied?
Yeah.
And certainly now that you know she's like this, you know what to expect. Now you can adjust and overcome. Those little things here and there, starting young, just not in harsh ways, they carry through.
Well, so let's see. Consistently communicate boundaries with responsibility.
Those four. I think that would be a good start. If you've only had 4 things to do, if you did those things, I think
pretty good.
You're likely to help your kids be productive, healthy individuals.
All right.